Hello, Topical, and welcome back to your NBA coverage that we're doing weekly, and we're just ramping up to the playoffs. I'm here with my NBA correspondent, Aradh Faruqi, and hey, it seems like we're going to be doing this for a while. How are you doing,
Yeah,
Aradh?
I'm doing well. Yeah, the NBA is. It's actually been, in my opinion, even with I guess what was considered a lack of parity before the beginning of the season, it's shaping up to be a pretty good NBA season, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
So
And this is probably going to be the only NBA podcast that you listen to that isn't going to get sidetracked by the NCAA tournament. We're just going to go straight past through it. We're not going to talk about the
yeah,
Virginia upset. We're not going to talk about any of your Cinderella picks. We're just going straight through.
the tournament has been pretty good, though. I will say that. But yeah, the NBA.
Has been better.
I've definitely had some focus on it. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
So, what games have you been watching this week?
So since our podcast last Sunday, I watched that after we finished up on the podcast. I watched the Lakers Cavaliers game that Sunday night. Then on Wednesday, I watched the double overtime game on ESPN between the Wizards and the Celtics.
Yeah.
And then on, I believe it was, I watched, and then last night I watched the Cleveland and Chicago game. Oh, and then also Cleveland and Portland on Thursday night.
Okay,
So,
cool.
so 4 games this week. 3 of them being about Cleveland, since everyone seems to know I follow Cleveland pretty religiously. So,
Yeah, they really haven't stepped up their defense yet. It doesn't seem
yes,
like that's happening until the playoffs.
yeah, I feel like at this point they sort of actually. And what was interesting about that was while I was watching the Portland game, to me it really seemed like LeBron was. He looked extremely engaged, even like on defense as well. Typically, he sort of just coasts, and he just kind of does whatever, and he stands on the perimeter and lets everyone else do everything. But he was taking some defensive assignments. He had a couple switches onto Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. He did a pretty good job defending them. And then the highlight play coming out of that game was his dunk on Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah, I saw that. That was pretty good.
Yeah, and but overall, and just talking about Cleveland, as we've sort of been following them for the past few weeks. I think what they showed in the game against Portland, Portland's they beat Cleveland by 8 points. But defensively, they did a pretty good job. They held Portland to 113 points, which it's not amazing, but seeing as Portland was on an 11-game winning streak, it's good that they didn't give up like 120 or 125 or something else like they usually do.
Yeah.
So I think in that game they sort of showed me that they're able to step up on defense and probably be a team that's somewhere around a top, I would say maybe top 10 to 12 defense in the league, but probably not anything more than that. They're really limited defensively in terms of talent. They don't really have anybody who, aside from honestly LeBron James, who and George Hill to a degree, who's been able to be a lockdown defender in the past. Rodney Hood, I think, is still a little bit away. He didn't play. He's out with I believe, a back spasm or something like that.
That's no fun.
Larry Nance was out as well. And I mean, I give them a little bit. I don't take too much away from the loss to Portland because LeBron James played amazingly. He had 35 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals, and he shot up 60% from the field. So he had another amazing LeBron game. But the most concerning thing to me about that game actually wasn't their defense. It was more about how LeBron was completely engaged. Like it looked as though he was playing in a playoff game. He wasn't settling for 3-point jump shots. He was attacking the rim. He was getting layups, making spin moves, attracting defensive attention, and he was picking his passes very wisely. He was only hitting George Hill and Kyle Korver in the corners, hitting Kyle Korver wide open, and some other players while they were cutting to the basket and things like that. So his selection of his passing and his and his shot selection were very good. So I thought he was very engaged. But what worried me about it was even with LeBron playing at a very high level, the other Cavs just couldn't seem to get it going, and that was sort of alarming to me because it seems as though like the thing for Cleveland is that it's always like the team goes as LeBron goes. So it's like when LeBron steps up to be however great he is, then obviously the team is going to be great. But just maybe it's because of the lack of star power on the floor right now because there's no Kevin Love there. It maybe just seems like they're they can't step up even when LeBron plays very well. But I think that's definitely something to watch with that team.
Oh, 100%. And something that I've been really paying attention to is how are the Cavs going to look when Kevin Love comes back? Because
Yeah.
you see every year at the trade deadline, they have this whole retooling period where they have to redevelop chemistry. And that's one of the great things about LeBron is that he allows the team to do that because he's just a piece that you can easily build a team around. And he's always helping his teammates out. But I'm especially concerned this year because it doesn't seem like they're developing chemistry right now, and that's only going to get worse once Kevin Love comes back and when Thompson eventually does.
Yeah, I think the one player I think that I'm sort of the most disappointed in since the trade deadline has been Rodney Hood.
Yeah.
He hasn't really when that trade went through, and I remember the day of the trade deadline, you and I were in class together, and then I mentioned to you that some of the trades had happened.
Yeah,
and
I didn't even know.
When he was acquired, I was really excited because, in Utah, he's been around a 17, 18 point per game scorer, shooting like 38% from three. So I really look forward to him becoming a definitive third option on this team behind LeBron James and Kevin Love, because to me, what's interesting about LeBron has been that he's never really, when he's had a team with a lot of talent, the third option on the team has never actually been a player who is, I guess, a third option necessarily, because Chris Bosh, obviously, you could make the argument he was a first or second option when he joined the Heat, and then Kevin Love obviously was amazing as a Timberwolf before he was traded to Cleveland. So, Chris Bosh and Kevin Love have sort of had to adapt to roles as becoming a third option, but to me, Rodney Hood was an amazing fit because he's a player who can catch and shoot and then also, slash to the basket and make good plays around the rim, but at the same time, he does all of those things without having to need the ball a lot. So he was a player who I thought would be a perfect third option next to Kevin Love, who likes to hold the ball a little bit in the post, and then obviously LeBron, who loves to hold the ball to facilitate and drive to the basket and all that stuff. So his play has been a little bit disappointing. I really hope that he steps up when he returns from this little setback that he's got going on. But because I truly think that because Rodney Hood is 6'8" and he's a shooting guard, he obviously has a ton of defensive potential, even if he's not necessarily a good defender on the ball. Just because he's so long and his wingspan is so long, I think that he could really be disruptive on defense, especially because in the finals, assuming Cleveland makes it to the finals, and let's say that their matchup is with Golden State, Rodney Hood is tall enough to the point where you can put him on Kevin Durant and not, Kevin Durant obviously is going to be able to torch anyone, but Rodney Hood is it's not like Kevin Durant's baskets would be so easy as they've been in the past, where he was, shooting shots over J.R. Smith, who's like 4, 5, maybe even 6 inches shorter than him, or Richard Jefferson. That was something that was happening in the finals last year as well. So Rodney Hood just because of his size and his ability to shoot the ball, I really hope that he can get things clicking once he returns to the lineup.
Oh, definitely, and it's so important that the Cavs at the trade deadline, they got some length and some athleticism for the Warriors, because that's really what they need to be doing at this point. It's just thinking about what they're going to do for the Warriors. I get that they have their concerns about the Eastern Conference, but at this point, there's not much they could do if they were going to lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, it is what it is at this point. But
yeah, I agree. It's going to be LeBron or bust in the Eastern Conference.
Oh, yeah. But what I'm curious to hear about is what you thought about the Trailblazers' defense. So I know their main thing is they like to play really good team defense. It doesn't seem like they're still holding up. And how did they really combat LeBron?
Honestly, I've been very, very impressed with Portland's defense. I remember, I'm not sure if we talked about it on last week's podcast or not, but there was a game that they played against Golden State, and it was Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. There was no Steph Curry, but I believe they held Golden State to something like 108 points. And to me, I mean, I know that they're a lower scoring team when Steph Curry doesn't play, but still, I mean, to be able to hold Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant, and then obviously you have Nick Young on that team. He can obviously shoot a lot of threes.
Yep.
Omri Caspi can make threes. Draymond Green when he feels. I mean, like on occasion, Draymond Green can make threes. And then Sean Livingston's a very good mid range scorer. They did a very good. And I feel like I'm missing one player, but regardless, I thought that their defense has been very good. And the fact that they've been able to win 11 games tells me that. Or whatever the streak was. I think they were on an 11-game winning streak. I'm not sure if it's been snapped yet or not, but basically what an 11 game win streak tells me is that their defense has been very good because obviously in a span of 11 games, you're not going to have that many. Like you're going to have good offensive nights, but I feel like it's very difficult to have 11 consecutive very strong offensive nights in a row. So there's obviously going to be some games in the middle of that streak where you're going to need to rely on your defense, and I feel like they've done that pretty well.
Oh yeah, and that's something interesting about the NBA because in most sports you can't really rely on your defense to be very consistent. You can rely on your offense a lot more, just because it's more scheme dependent. You can have like one individual player who's like always on, and then like it really lifts up the whole team. But you don't see that as much with defense. But Portland's has really held up, and that's been good. Obviously, it's going to fall off sooner or later just because you don't have a streak for the rest of the season. But you know. But speaking of really good streaks in the NBA right now, even though the Jazz's 10-game win streak or whatever they got to it was broken, it seems like they started another one right now, and they're all the way up to the 5th seed in the Western Conference.
The Jazz, to me, are the worst, best team in the Eastern Conference. Yeah, it's an interesting phrase to say, but in terms of like they really are like when on all cylinders when they're clicking, like they're one of the more consistent teams in the Western Conference because you have a team like Denver who's extremely inconsistent, and then you have obviously San Antonio. You can't really blame them for being inconsistent because of they always seem like they have it together, but this season they've just sort of had a lot of injuries and the whole Kawhi situation looming over them. So I can forgive that, but and then obviously Oklahoma City is extremely inconsistent. Minnesota has had a lot of trouble being consistent with Jimmy Butler out of the lineup. And New Orleans, obviously, they also have some injuries. I think Anthony Davis has missed 2-3 games or something like that. So in recent weeks, so Utah is more consistent. I feel like they're one of those teams. Like if they're losing games, then they'll lose a few games, but when they're winning games, they'll win a lot of games. So I won't be surprised if they end up making the playoffs. I think the two teams that will end up being out of the playoffs, I think it'll end up being Denver and the Clippers, because I have a lot more faith in Greg Popovich, especially because they just went to Minnesota last night, I think, and they beat the Wolves by 16 points. So
yeah,
that was impressive. And LaMarcus Aldridge had 39 points and I think 14 rebounds, something like. It was a very good game. And if LaMarcus Aldridge continues to play like that for 13, 14 more games, I won't be surprised if San Antonio misses the playoffs or makes the playoffs rather. And then I also, when Anthony Davis gets back, I do have faith that New Orleans will be able to stay in there. But Los Angeles and Denver, really, they don't have anything that's making me think that either of them will make the playoffs. Because Utah really, when Rudy Gobert is in the lineup, I know a lot of people love to focus on Donovan Mitchell with that team, and that's completely fair. Donovan Mitchell, I saw a stat today. In the past 20 seasons, he has the 4th most 25-point games by a rookie, behind Carmelo Anthony, Blake Griffin, and LeBron James. So he's a very good scorer. He's already an NBA-ready scorer. So, but Rudy Gobert really tightens up their defense, and their differential is much, much better when he's on the court. And the whole team just really seems to have and Joe Ingles is having an amazing season. He just set the Jazz franchise record for three-pointers made. So, Utah has a lot of they've got a lot of interchangeable pieces. Quinn Snyder, I think, is an underrated head coach in the NBA.
Definitely.
And yeah.
Yeah, I you know me. I'm a massive Rudy Gobert fan, and anytime he's lifting up their defense, I'm very happy with it. I would love to see them make the playoffs, but yeah, it makes me super sad that the Nuggets aren't going to make it at this point. Sure, anything could happen, and the Spurs could miraculously fall off, but I'd much rather see the 20-year streak stay alive than the Nuggets.
Oh, sorry.
What?
Yeah. Nothing. I was just muting my game.
Oh, I didn't even hear it.
Oh, yeah. The stream has just come on. So,
yeah.
Ryan and I are going to be watching Timberwolves game for.
Yeah, Timberwolves Rockets. I was super sad to just see Derrick Rose, and we're going to get into that later and why Thibodeau's an idiot. But yeah, I'm super disappointed that the Nuggets are going to miss the playoffs, basically just because Paul Millsap was injured for half the year. But I mean, the Spurs have survived without Kawhi Leonard, and up until when Greg Popovich's Spurs were still in the number 3 seed, I would have said he's coach of the year. Obviously, they've fallen off now, so he's not really. But he's still done an amazing job, and really all of these NBA teams are struggling through injuries at this point.
Yeah, especially the Warriors. The Warriors have actually been multiple injuries. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah.
Clay Thompson is out with a fractured thumb. Kevin Durant is out with some fractured rib cartilage. Steph Curry out with an ankle sprain, and Draymond Green has some nagging injuries, but he played last night, so yeah, I don't think his is a big deal. But on the note of the Warriors, actually, I watched a little bit of the Phoenix Suns, or not, yeah, no, Phoenix Suns, or first I watched a little bit of the Golden State and Sacramento game. Sacramento ended up beating the Warriors, but they didn't have any of their big four, so it wasn't a big deal. But last night, they were in a close, or when I was watching it, it was a close game against Phoenix. And I think last week you asked me this question about the Warriors' backup point guard, Quinn Cook.
Yeah.
In the past two games, he scored 25 points, and then last night he scored 28 points.
Dang.
And last night, Draymond Green, he had 25 points, 11 rebounds, and 8 assists.
Ooh, that's good.
So yeah, for Draymond Green, that's a very good game. And I was texting with one of my friends prior to that game, and I said if Draymond Green can't win a game against Phoenix, leading a team, then he doesn't deserve to be an All-Star.
Yeah.
So luckily he did that. So
yeah, he's an All-Star.
Yeah, yeah, Draymond Green. He's one of the more easy players in the NBA to dislike just because of his antics and how loud and annoying he is, and obviously because of the Steven Adams kick 2 years ago. But he impressed me last night. He did a very good job.
Yeah, I forgot about that Steven Adams kick. It was really funny. Like 2 years ago, Steven Adams looked a lot less homeless, but once he got this whole mustache and beard thing, he's just like gone off the deep end.
The way that he looked his rookie year is nothing like how he looks now. But
oh yeah, it's like a hardened transformation right there.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else is going on in the NBA? I guess we can talk about this Timberwolves thing and them hiring Derrick Rose. Are you as disappointed in the Timberwolves?
I mean, I don't really know because I personally am a big fan of Derrick Rose. I feel like it's difficult to root against a guy who's still trying after everything that's happened to him. But at the same time, Derrick Rose really is not. He's not really an NBA caliber starter at this point in his career. Like, I think if he's able to get a consistent rhythm off the bench, he can be a player who gives you maybe 8 to 10 points a game, if that. But he's lost his playmaking ability. He's lost his ability to really explode. He can give some flashes here or there, but he can only really do it for a couple minutes a game. But I think mentally it'll put him in a good place to be with Tom Thibodeau again, and I'm not excited, but at the same time, like it's not. I'm not opposed to them signing him just because, like, it's whatever. Tom Thibodeau doesn't even play his bench anyway, so it probably won't affect very much.
Yeah, and like my biggest thing was I'm fine if he wants to come off the bench, but I was worried that he was going to be taking away minutes from Tyus Jones, who secretly has been one of the best, most efficient players on the team right now.
Yeah, Tyus Jones, he surprised me. I remember last year when they made that deal for Jimmy Butler. As a Timberwolves fan, I was kind of like, why'd you get rid of Chris Dunn? You should have kept Chris Dunn and got rid of Tyus Jones. But no, Tyus Jones has proved me wrong in that aspect. He's probably been just about as good as Chris Dunn has been for the Bulls this season. But Chris Dunn also quietly having a very good season. But yeah, Tyus Jones is, as long as Derrick Rose doesn't interfere with the development of Tyus Jones, and that's fine.
Yeah, definitely. And like, it's not like I hate Derrick Rose or anything. It's just I want to protect the Timberwolves. So I feel bad enough already for them that they lost Jimmy Butler, and who knows what's gonna happen for him in the playoffs. But yeah.
Oh, is he playing?
Oh, is he? I didn't notice that.
Is he back? Oh my, I didn't know that.
Here, we'll find out in a couple minutes. But speaking of injury news,
that was a replay. Never mind.
Oh, you got me. You got me excited.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's playing.
Okay, so yeah, don't expect good defense then. So, as in other injury news across the NBA, what's going on with the Kawhi saga? I thought he was supposed to play on Thursday.
He was, and then he just didn't. So the situation there is, I don't know. It worries me because I feel as though Kawhi Leonard. I don't want to see him anywhere in the league except in San Antonio, because without Kawhi Leonard, as we've seen this season, the Spurs they're not necessarily a team that can be a consistent powerhouse in the Western Conference.
Yeah.
They've had a very good year without him. I think it's extremely impressive what they've been able to do with practically no one aside from LaMarcus Aldridge and a bunch of old guys, and then some,
Yeah, and even
whoever.
Aldridge has been out a bunch of games, and same with Pau Gasol, and
Yeah. Oh, Pau Gasol is there as well, but he's old at this point. And like the Spurs' main guys are like Bryn Forbes, Davis Bertans, and DeJounte Murray,
and Kyle Anderson.
Kyle Anderson, and the fact that they've been able to do everything that they've been doing to me is extremely amazing. But at the same time, if Kawhi Leonard goes to another team, it's just kind of like, where would he go? Because I don't see Kawhi Leonard as being a player who I don't think he should become a second option anywhere. And it seems like any good place that he would go to would be a place where he would be the first option, because like, I mean, there's no team out there that really has a good second and third option, but where he could become the first option and lead them. Like, I don't really see any situation out there in the league that puts him in. I mean, honest, maybe if he wanted to go to the Jazz or something, like the Jazz could be very good.
Oh, that'd be weird.
Yeah, it'd be really weird, but it would work because, I mean, they'd be defensively unstoppable because of Kawhi and Rudy Gobert, and then you have Donovan Mitchell for scoring, and then Kawhi can score and he can shoot, and that could be cool. And then obviously you have Ricky Rubio making plays for everyone, so Kawhi could hold off even more on developing that part of his game. But overall, I want him to stay in San Antonio because, like, he's a Spur, like he's perfect for the Spurs, and it was sort of, I feel like, changed the Spurs' reputation a little bit as being the most, because everyone who comes to the Spurs stays loyal to the Spurs. David Robinson loves the Spurs still. Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Bruce Bowen, Steven Jackson. Everyone who's been a Spur talks so highly about the franchise, and it would just look weird if their star player said that he wants out. But hopefully San Antonio offers him the Supermax contract extension this offseason and he signs it, because then we'll see him locked up in San Antonio for the next 5 years, which I think is good. But as far as his injury situation goes, based on what I've watched and what I've read, it's just a matter of the Spurs medical staff has cleared him, but Kawhi himself has said that he feels like it's still lingering a little bit, and he said that he doesn't want to take any chances playing on it if he's going to be hurt. So hopefully he returns tomorrow. Tomorrow is they're playing the Golden State on live TV.
Ooh.
So that would be cool if he could come back and play that game, because I think if they won that game against the very, very short-handed Warriors, then I think a win like that would be able to get them some momentum towards the end of the season, because the Spurs have the second hardest remaining schedule. I'm not sure what team is number one, but they have the second hardest remaining schedule in the league. The combined win percentage of all the teams they're facing is like 58% or something like that. So
yeah, we mentioned last week that it was like equivalent to a number 4 seed in the league.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I hope that it's nothing serious, because obviously there have been a lot of reports that there's tension and that Kawhi doesn't want to be there anymore, and that he might want to leave in the offseason because he doesn't have faith that the Spurs management can put guys around him. But if I were the Spurs, what I would do is I would sign Kawhi Leonard to the Supermax extension, and my pitch to him would be, we're going to make a strong push at LeBron James in the offseason.
Yeah, I think that you got to do that.
Yeah, I think that's what they should do. And then, even if they can't lure LeBron, if Houston collapses in the playoffs, you can probably try and go for Chris Paul, because he's probably not going to want to stay in Houston if they completely collapse, because at this point, he's 32, he's going to turn 33 soon. And I feel like the door is, in a way, closing on Chris Paul, because point guards, given his injury history, I feel like he's sort of one injury away, or maybe 1 or 2 injuries away from his career sort of being done. So I think the window is closing on Chris Paul's opportunity to be a star caliber player on a championship team. So, maybe the Spurs could make a move at him because he's a free agent this offseason. Or, whoever's out there, basically. I'm not sure who all the free agents this coming offseason are, but this class isn't nearly as loaded as the class from 2 years ago or even last year. But if I'm the Spurs, I do got to offer him the Supermax and just hope that he signs it, and just come back next season if he doesn't end up coming back this season.
Yeah, and before this year, I would have said that Kawhi would have been looking to take a discount, but just because of his history with endorsements, like he's the strong silent type. Like he's not going to be getting a lot of money outside of the NBA. So you got to think that he would want to be getting as much out of his money as he can. Well,
Yeah, definitely, because I think Jordan, the deal that he has with the Jordan brand only gives him, I think, $3 million a year. I want to say
yeah, something like that. Just
it's
nothing.
very small. It's one of the smallest contracts for a star player. He himself, I think, this was a report. He obviously didn't say this because he didn't say anything, but
Yeah.
Apparently a report said that he's not happy with the fact that his contract with Jordan does not reflect his standing in the league. Which
Yeah.
I think in total it's only a $20 million deal. But James Harden's deal with Adidas is worth $200 million. LeBron obviously has a lifetime $1 billion deal with Nike. So, obviously, if Kawhi Leonard's somewhere between 1 and 5 and best players in the world, then he should be reflected as such in his shoe deal. So,
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see how many more years that's going to last because you got to be certain that he would want to renegotiate. But back on that Jazz connection, I think the biggest thing is that Quinn Snyder is just such a similar coach to Greg Popovich, and he runs a very similar system. And
he is. They play kind of like everything comes off their defense. They're low. They don't allow that many points, and then they pound their offense just by smart ball movement, shooting good threes, and taking high percentage shots. I think Kawhi Leonard could thrive in a system like that, but I think it would. In terms of maybe for him, I feel like it would be a step up because I know last season he had some issues gelling with LaMarcus Aldridge, but because I feel like LaMarcus Aldridge is sort of a difficult player to play with, just because not because of his attitude or anything, but just his style of play it's so back to the basket, and like when you're making a decision to go through LaMarcus Aldridge for a play, like he holds the ball for a good 10 to 12, sometimes longer, like seconds, because he backs down, he holds the ball, he extends it out, then sometimes he'll shoot a fade, sometimes he'll do a spin move, sometimes like he is sort of he's not very he's not conductive to ball movement really. So in a system where on a team where he's playing with a player like Rudy Gobert, who doesn't really need the ball offensively and is more of just offensive rebounds, put back dunks, pick and roll kind of player.
Yeah.
I feel like that would work really well for him. So, and then obviously you have Donovan Mitchell, who would give him a second scorer to take the load off, because in San Antonio he doesn't. LaMarcus wasn't really a 20-point per game scorer last year, but yeah.
Oh, I hope Towns is okay. That didn't look good.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he's limping a little bit, but I think he should be fine.
Okay.
If he goes down, this season's actually over.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But going back to that LaMarcus Aldridge thing, he's really just one of those players where you got to just feed him the ball and then give him his space.
Yeah, kind of like what Towns is doing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Except Towns is better.
Yeah, Towns is much better. Also, honestly, Kawhi could fit here because there's a report that Andrew Wiggins is unhappy there. So.
Oh yay! Woohoo! Andrew Wiggins sucks.
Yeah, Andrew Wiggins. I don't really as a Wolves fan. I like him because he's a he's a fine NBA player in terms of as a scorer.
He's a great scorer. It's just everything else.
Yeah, everything else he sucks at, and he doesn't play defense. He can't rebound the ball. He can't pass the ball, and he's he's been one of the worst defenders in the NBA, despite being 6'8", which is just disappointing. So to me, that just says that he doesn't try, which is a little bit annoying. But he is not. He shouldn't have been the first pick in that draft. I think this sort of just goes to say that Joel Embiid's injury is the only reason that he was not picked number one.
Oh yeah,
and that I don't know that
from deep.
Yeah. And Andrew Wiggins. If they trade Andrew Wiggins in this offseason, or honestly, if they trade Andrew Wiggins this offseason somewhere else, maybe the Timberwolves would be a cool fit for Kawhi because you have a pair of defensive stoppers on the wings.
Yeah,
Jimmy
that would help so much.
Kawhi Leonard. That I think would really put the Wolves in a spot to actually be a legitimate championship contender. Because Towns will develop another year, then you have Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, and then obviously you have a point guard who doesn't need that much, and Jeff Teague.
And awesome role players. You got Billy. What's his name? With the BJ.
Name it, Bielitsa.
Yeah, Bielitsa, and then Taj Gibson is an amazing role player. He's one of the best in the league.
Yeah, Taj Gibson, one of the more unsung heroes in the NBA. I really like him.
Yeah.
But I think Thibodeau. I don't know. I mean, obviously Thibodeau does deserve some credit for how well they've been playing, but he does. I think he needs to make
a lot of criticism.
Yeah, he needs to do a little bit of a some like one of his assistant coaches or something. Like someone just needs to tell him like, dude, like you can't play your starters 38 minutes just because you want to. Like you got to rest them sometimes. Like like there's no reason that you should be playing your stars fourth quarter minutes when you're up by 20. Like that's ridiculous.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
um yeah, but I mean, we'll live with Tom Thibodeau, I guess. He'll be okay. But yeah, the Kawhi situation overall, like I'm not really sure what. It's one of the more strange stories in the NBA this year. I think it'd probably be the strangest story if it wasn't for the whole Markelle Fultz jump shot thing.
Oh
But
yeah, good point. That's kind of
yeah,
flown under the radar. I don't think many people are talking about that anymore.
yeah, not really, because I mean, I guess it's sort of just expected that if you're going to if you're playing in Philadelphia, then you're not going to play your first season. But because Ben Simmons didn't play his first season, Nerlens Noel didn't play his first season, Joel Embiid didn't play his first 2 seasons, and now Markelle Fultz, obviously.
Yeah. But
So
I think really what it is that almost immediately it got leaked to what the actual story was. But with the Kawhi situation, because the Spurs organization is just so tight-lipped, it's been like 7 months and we still don't know the story.
yeah, I mean they're saying it's quad something tendinopathy or whatever, but at the end of the day, like there's no reason that a player, if he's been cleared
Yeah,
by the
like
medical
you
staff, it's
shouldn't be out
obviously
for
in some
nine
other issue.
months. This is absurd.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, I guess we'll find out. At the end of the day, everything comes out. So if he doesn't sign the extension this offseason, then we'll be in for a really really interesting free agency.
Oh, definitely. And like you would see all the teams going on a run for him because what NBA team doesn't want a player that can have a high usage but also be incredibly efficient and great on
Yeah,
defense?
honestly, I what here's what I think. I think that this was a really really fun trade scenario that I read. It would be if Kawhi would have to not sign his extension, he would have to say that he's unhappy and that he wants a trade. So that way he would have the leverage in the situation. The Spurs would be kind of in a tight spot. Then the Spurs could trade. They could do a sign and trade to Philadelphia for
Ooh,
like Dario Saric and some role players and maybe a draft pick, and then LeBron could sign there in the offseason. Then you'd have Kawhi Leonard, Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and LeBron James. And
that would be ridiculous.
goodbye Warriors if that happened.
Yeah,
that
no kidding. Like that's how you beat
yeah,
the Warriors right there.
because they're all big. They're all Kawhi's the shortest one. He's 6'7".
Yeah, that'd be absolutely ridiculous.
And the interesting thing about that is that you wouldn't be giving up anything on defense because Joel Embiid can guard just about anyone. He's in running for Defensive Player of the Year. Ben
Yeah,
Simmons obviously can guard anyone because he's 7 feet tall. He can guard any guard. And then LeBron obviously when he chooses to can guard, and then Kawhi Leonard can obviously guard as well. So that would be terrifying.
oh yeah, yeah. Where'd you see that? Like who wrote it?
I can't remember. It was in a video. I think maybe it was The Jump on ESPN,
Oh, okay.
but something like that. But and then obviously I think at this point Kyle Korver will follow LeBron James wherever he goes because
Yeah,
LeBron James is how Kyle Korver is going to extend his career. So
yeah. Funny how well that worked out for him. Well, yeah, that was just a spur of the moment thing at the deadline
yeah,
that
yeah,
first
that
year.
kind of just happened last season. Or was
Well,
it last season? Or was
no,
it the
2 years
season?
ago. It was his first year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, because he was in the yeah. So his yeah, that came out of nowhere. I was kind of surprised because at the time Atlanta was still sort of relevant, and he was one of Atlanta's players that had went to battle with Cleveland in the playoffs a couple times. So that was interesting. But
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
So, actually, I don't know that much about the Heat this season. What's really been holding them up?
well, Goran Dragic was an All Star. He shouldn't have been, but he was. Um, he is a pretty good player. He's underrated. He averages about, I think, 17, 18 points. He's a pretty good 3-point shooter. He can maybe 5, 6 assists a game. So his steady play has been helping them out a lot. Hassan Whiteside's been injured, which is kind of
Oh, really? Huh.
one of the more interesting things because he's their best player, I think. But I think they sort of Miami is as a city and just as a team in general. I think they gained a lot of energy at the trade deadline when they got Dwayne Wade back. It was just really exciting for all of them to have him back. He's actually been playing really well off the bench for them. So, I think they're kind of like their team sort of like all the other teams that are struggling in the Western Conference, where it's just or not all the other teams, but like a team similar to maybe like Utah and the Spurs, where they'll have good stretchers, bad stretchers, and they're sort of just carried by a bunch of role players and no significant star that's doing much.
Yeah, except lucky for them, they don't have to worry about not making the playoffs.
Yeah, they're not gonna. They're pretty pretty much. I think all the teams that are in the Eastern Conference playoffs are essentially a lock. I think now in the East, it's really just a matter of who gets what seed because Detroit's not going to make it. They're 6 games back. Yeah, 6.5 games back. No, yeah, Charlotte's below that. So the Eastern playoffs is going to be Miami, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Indiana, Washington, Cleveland, Boston, Toronto. But the interesting thing about it is that seeds 4 through 8 are separated by 3 games. So there could be some changing up of seeding.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting statistic for the Rockets that, unlike the Cavs, their defense goes down as they go into the season.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of defense, I know the Thunder are on a 5-game winning streak. It looks like, aside from this Raptors game, they've really bottled up the defense, and they are starting to figure out how to play without Roberson. Where's that coming from?
I would probably attribute almost all of it to Paul George and Steven Adams because Paul George, I think, remember in the All-Star special that we had, I said Paul George was my pick for becoming the Defensive Player of the Year this season. But he has really been doing a good job on all the perimeter guys. He had a little bit of a tough time today because DeMar DeRozan is extremely talented, but and Steven Adams is a bruiser. He is willing to sort of do anything that needs to be done on the defensive end. So I think they've just been playing extremely hard, and they're sort of carrying the defense right now. Obviously, Russell Westbrook does too much, or he tries to do a lot, so his defense doesn't really do that much. But basically, I would just give it to Paul George and Steven Adams. They're a really good defensive tandem because Steven Adams can sort of guard anyone who's doing damage in the paint and down low, and then Paul George can get onto anyone who's playing well from the perimeter. So
yeah, definitely. I'm really happy that we're watching this Timberwolves Rockets game because I finally get to see what exactly makes this Timberwolves defense so bad. It seems like they just don't work together.
They don't communicate, it looks like, because when I watch them, they just don't seem to talk to each other. There's a lot of looking around, expecting someone else to do something. Sort of similar to the Cleveland situation, but not nearly as bad because Cleveland really just doesn't do anything. And also, I mean, I attributed it to a lack of having Jimmy Butler on the floor because when Jimmy Butler plays, they play much, much better defense. But on this alley-oop that we're seeing right now to Capella, everyone's just kind of running around. So
yeah. So crap, I lost my train of thought.
We're talking about defense.
Yeah. And also, you got to think it's just the scheme. Like, the Rockets kind of do this to everybody with their floor spacing ability.
Houston is a legitimate threat. I know people keep bringing up the fact that Harden and Chris Paul have failed to get it done in the playoffs.
Yeah, but that's your only excuse at this point.
Yeah, there's really no other reason. Houston is a team that's perfectly built for the modern NBA. Oh wow, that was a nice layup by Trevor Ariza. But they're an amazing team. They're built perfectly. They're the only team in the NBA that has consistent high level all-star caliber point guard play for 48 minutes every game. They're the only team that can shoot they have 6 to 7 guys who can shoot threes, and then they have about 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 guys that can defend at a high level. They've got Chris Paul, Clint Capella, Trevor Ariza, PJ Tucker, and then Luke Mbah-a-Moute. That's 5 right there off the top of my head. And then James Harden, I know, gets a lot of flack for being an awful defender, but he's trying this season, and he's not great, but he's passable. He's fine, and he's a good steals guy. So, he can be disruptive. And on top of that, they're a very good rebounding team. They have inside defense, perimeter defense. They can shoot threes. They can play slow, and they can play fast. This is an interesting stat. I'm not sure if you've heard this, but Houston is the only team that's been on 2 15-game winning streaks this season. And in the first winning streak of 15 games, they played at the fastest pace in the league. And then on the second 15-game winning streak, they played at the third slowest pace in the league. So Houston can really beat you both ways. They can beat you if they play fast pace. They can beat you if they play slow pace. So regardless of what Golden State wants to do to them in a series, if Golden State wants to play a lot of isolation, if they want to go through Kevin Durant inside and mid-range, Houston can match that perfectly. Or if Golden State wants to speed up the tempo, shoot a bunch of threes, and have a game like Steph Curry, KD, and Clay, all of them going for like 30 or something like that, Houston probably would not be able to stop it if all 3 of them went for 30. But regardless, if they're shooting a bunch of threes, Houston can also compete with that because Houston doesn't have two guys who can go for 30 in one game. I don't think. Chris Paul and James Harden will have combined for 60 points, but
No.
they have a bunch of guys that'll go for 10 probably. And if you can get 6, 7 guys going for 10 to 15, that's going to be amazing. And then obviously Harden's going to have much more than that.
Yeah, and that stat is fascinating. I don't really care that they did it with the fastest pace in the league, but the fact that they were able to do it with one of the slowest is something I didn't realize that they could do this year, and that's incredibly important because in the playoffs it slows down a ton, and the fact that they're able to win like that is very telling.
And the one concern that I've heard some people have about this team is that they're worried that in the playoffs James Harden won't be able to be nearly as effective in an isolation situation. But my response to that would be that's exactly the reason why they got Chris Paul, because anytime that James Harden is having any trouble doing anything, he can literally just give it to Chris Paul, and the odds of you catching both of them having a game where they're unable to do anything, the odds of that are ridiculously slim. It's similar. To me, it's extremely, because I think that the best duo in the NBA, just in terms of superstar talent, it goes Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, and then after that, I would give it to James Harden and Chris Paul, because the odds of KD and Steph both having a really awful night are extremely slim, which is why they win so much. And to me, this would be the same thing, because Chris Paul, the myth of him being a choker is a little bit ridiculous, because Chris Paul has lost a lot of series, but he's never been on the best team in those series. And a lot of the time, his teams have just been decimated by injuries. It really hasn't been him failing to have a good game, really. I have faith that this year, this team will be able to do. And then this is another player that's not really talked about enough on Houston is Eric Gordon. Even if James Harden is off, Eric Gordon can probably give you 25, 26 points. He's had a couple 30-point games this year, I think. So, and he's the sixth man of the year from last year, and he's probably going to be one of the players in conversations to win it again this year. So Houston, I think, has a bunch of weapons. And if they get down to a tough situation in the clutch, they also have ISO Joe Johnson.
Yeah.
He hit a game winner in the playoffs last season. So he made a buzzer-beating shot in the playoffs to win game one of their series against the Clippers last year when he was on the Jazz. So, Houston's got a lot of pieces. I'm really excited to see what they can do this year.
Yeah, and at this point, I think the only way that they underperform is Chris Paul gets injured and then Harden chokes. But if they're both healthy, the sky's the limit. Do you think Chris Paul would be satisfied with taking the Warriors to 7 in the conference final?
I don't think so. I think Chris Paul is going to be one of those players who he would probably end up as being like the Charles Barkley of this generation, where it's he was the most talented player to not win a championship. Because when I look at this era, just in terms of who the players have been since the 2000s, I can't think of a better player that doesn't have a championship off the top of my head, at least, because Steve Nash is great, but I don't think
he's
not Chris Paul. He's not nearly as good a defender, not as good a rebounder.
Not as good on offense, frankly.
Yeah, he's really he's not even that good of a scorer. Steve Nash was probably just a little bit fancier of a passer, but I think Chris Paul, an underrated part of his game is his assist to turnover ratio is ridiculous. He's been one of the only players. He's had multiple seasons where he's averaged 9 or 10 assists, but only averaged 2 turnovers.
Yeah,
I think this season he might even be averaging less than 2 turnovers because he's been able to share ball handling duties with James Harden. But I really hope that Chris Paul wins a championship, because I think if he doesn't this year, his career is probably going to resort to being, he's probably going to be signing 1-2 year deals with multiple teams to see if he can win one. But Chris Paul's not going to go to Golden State. I don't see it.
Definitely not.
He's extremely competitive, and just his rivalry with them while he was on the Clippers is probably, still obviously in his head. So I think he'll look at, basically, if they lose in 7 to Golden State, I think he has a much better chance of staying in Houston, because in this coming off season, he can just, any pitch to the free agent that they try and get will just be, we were literally 1 game away from being champions. If we had beaten Golden State, we definitely would have beaten whoever came out of the East, because the gap is obviously very, very high. So, if they get to 7, I think there's a higher chance he stays there, but I don't think he'll be satisfied necessarily.
Yeah, and the biggest thing right now for me is just get him to the conference final. It's ridiculous that he's still.
Yeah, he's never been. Yeah. The only two franchises in the league that have not been to the conference finals since 2000 are the New Orleans Pelicans slash New Orleans Hornets, and
who
then
get a pass?
the Los Angeles Clippers, and those are the two teams that Chris Paul has played for his entire career prior to this season. So,
Yeah.
I think it's basically given that he's probably going to get to the conference finals this year, unless, of course,
Disaster strikes. Yeah.
if there's some disaster and like Kawhi comes back and then the Spurs get the 8th seed and then they get matched up with Houston and then Houston has the worst meltdown, losing in like 6 games to the 8th seeded Spurs, then that's just going to be, then Chris Paul's gone and they're going to have to rethink this whole thing, and James Harden's never going to be looked at the same way.
Which is unfortunate, but yeah.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. If they lose to the 8th seeded Spurs, if that happens, you know, that's going to be disappointing.
Yeah.
But while that said, it's weird because I feel like it's weird because like if you could follow this, like I think San Antonio has a chance to beat Houston, and Houston has a chance to beat Golden State, but I don't think San Antonio has a chance to beat Golden State because I just feel like even though they had the 23-point lead in Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals last year, I really don't think San Antonio is going to win that series based just on firepower and how well Golden State was playing. Because at the end of the day, San Antonio is never going to be able to match their firepower in terms of scoring,
especially over a 7-game series.
Yeah, like San Antonio probably could get 2, maybe even 3 games off of them, but just in a 7-game series, I don't think that there's a way that any team really, other than Houston, simply because of firepower, would be able to match them bucket for bucket. So defensively, they could play with them all game long, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to having to guard. Like the both of the teams, San Antonio and Golden State, play elite defense, but the fact is that Golden State is going to be playing that elite defense on much lesser talent. And Kawhi Leonard's never had a serious. Since him and Kevin Durant have both really been among the top 3 players in the league, they've the last series they played was in 2016. But I remember watching that series, and for some reason, Kawhi Leonard really wasn't even guarding Kevin Durant that much. I'm not sure why that was, but that was Tim Duncan was still playing at the time. It was weird. They were playing Kevin Durant big, so Tim Duncan was guarding Kevin Durant a lot, and then Tim Duncan was sort of playing out to like the key area, and Kevin Durant was shooting a lot of mid-range jumpers. It was very strange why they didn't have Kawhi on him, but maybe it was just because Pop was probably preserving Kawhi for offense because
they just didn't have anything else.
Yeah, this was in 2016 anyway. But basically, in the last 2, we've never really seen a matchup, I think, where Kawhi and Kevin Durant are really, really going at it. But at the end of the day, just because Kevin Durant is more talented offensively, I feel like Kevin Durant would be able to give Kawhi more fits defensively than the other way around.
Yeah, I never realized those Olympic gold medals are that yellow.
Oh.
Yeah, they just brought out the Olympic curling team. Originally I didn't even realize those were brooms. I thought they were actually like trying to sweep some water off the ground. I'm like, holy crap, that's a lot of water. But
yeah.
So definitely on that Kawhi thing, and it is a weird triangle where the Spurs could beat the Rockets, but they couldn't beat the Warriors, and then obviously Warriors could lose to the Rockets, but. And at first I did think it was weird, but yeah, I agree with you on the firepower thing. The Spurs just do not have enough in the basket to combat it, and I think this year will be really telling to see if the Spurs can stand pat to pat with them, and that's why I really want Kawhi back, because I feel like it's just a lost year for the Spurs if we can't get him.
See, the thing is that if the Spurs move up to 6 and they get a first-round matchup with Portland, I think that'll be extremely interesting because. Let's face it, I hate to say this about Portland, but Portland is not beating Houston or Golden State. Portland is great, but at the end of the day, they have 2 really good scorers and not much else. They don't really have any lockdown defenders. They really just don't have that much. Portland is one piece away. Portland really is one of those teams that's one piece away. They need one more really, really good player before you can take them seriously as contenders. But I'm sorry to say it to all of Rip City, but I am sleeping on Portland.
Sorry.
I don't think Portland is going to be able to do much. So if the Spurs beat Portland in the first round, if they're able to move up to 6, they beat Portland in the first round, and then they get a second round matchup. So 3-6 plays 2-7. So that would give us a second round matchup between Golden State and San Antonio. And I think that would be really interesting because if San Antonio can take Golden State to maybe 6 games in a really competitive, tough, hard fought series, then I think it bangs up Golden State going into the conference finals against Houston. And Houston, I think, has a really, really good shot of beating beating a team, that's coming off a 6 game series with the Spurs. Because I think an underrated element of playoff basketball is the series that you played before really affects you. Because
Yeah.
I think we saw it in the NBA Finals in 2016 when the Warriors lost to Cleveland. That I think a lot of it had to do with a lot of fatigue because they had to play a really hard fought 7 game series against Oklahoma City where they wouldn't have even made the NBA Finals if Klay Thompson didn't have that one off game in Game 6. So and then obviously they've had extremely easy roads in the Western Conference in 2015 and 2017, both times when they won the championship. So
Yeah, definitely, and it's something that's just not looked at enough is what the road that you had to go on to get to the actual finals. And yeah, people that argue, oh, it was an injury to Draymond, or oh, Andrew Bogut was out for a game. Well, that has a lot to do with how fatigued you were heading into the games.
Honestly, my only thing is like if you're going to use the Draymond excuse, it's like, okay, so the one game that the one game that Draymond was not there in Game 5, LeBron James scored 41 points.
Yeah.
Game 6, very next game, he's back. Draymond Green is back, and LeBron scores 41 points again. So I mean, you can't really say like if he scored the exact same amount of points and his primary defender was Draymond Green, and there was no drop off. I mean, who's to say that if Draymond Green was there, LeBron wouldn't score 41 points? I feel like that's just a lot of people who are trying to take away what Cleveland accomplished, and which I think is a little bit unfair. And to me, it's like Skip Bayless tried to do this. You cannot.
I thought we were going to avoid his name.
Oh no, Skip Bayless tried to do this, and I remember watching this clip, and he was like, I hate when people when you say like it's like you don't talk about a player for an entire year. You don't mention him at all as being a contributing factor in a series or in the playoffs or even in the regular season. But then as soon as that player's gone, everyone starts to toot his horn like, "Oh my God, it's such a huge loss." Like you would have been talking about his value prior to that if he really was that huge of a loss. Because Skip Bayless said if Andrew Bogut had been there in Game 7 or whatever game he missed, like there's no way that Cleveland would have won because they wouldn't have been able to get to the rim. LeBron wouldn't be able to finish over Andrew Bogut. And that's just a bunch of stupid stuff. That's just dumb. So.
Yeah, definitely. And for all these people that act like injuries don't always happen in the NBA playoffs and there isn't always a team in the finals that's hampered by some injury to a star player and like just acting like, oh, it's the first time ever that a team probably wouldn't have won the NBA Finals if both teams were completely healthy. That's just being ridiculous, and that's not looking at the history of the thing.
Golden State has had help because of injuries in the past so many times. Last season, every playoff series they played other than Cleveland had an injured starter in the Western Conference. In the season before, there was some injury to some player on Houston and Portland. And then in the year before, someone was injured in the Chris Paul in the Clippers series. Yeah. And someone was injured in the Grizzlies series. New Orleans is always having injuries to their perimeter players and stuff, so that happened as well. Golden State has been one of the more they've been so lucky with injuries the past 3 seasons. So the fact that it's happening to them this season, I think, it's just sort of like that's what happens in the NBA. Like every team at some point faces injuries. I just really hope that Houston stays lucky this season.
Yeah, it's the great equalizer. Yeah, that's injuries for you. So that basically takes us through the entire Western Conference. I don't think we have to really talk about the Pelicans. They're a pretty prototypical 8 seed. It looks like they're probably going to get it. It's going to be a similar situation to the 2015 playoffs where they got knocked out in 4 games by the Warriors.
Yeah, I'm actually watching a game on my TV right now. I've got Boston and New Orleans. They're up by 4 against the Celtics. So
Dang, double viewing.
Anthony Davis is playing right now. He's playing really well, so they'll probably be able to get some stuff done.
All right, great.
And I think also this is really interesting as well. If New Orleans stays at 7 and New Orleans plays Golden State in round 1, Anthony Davis can probably get a game off of them and give them a lot of trouble because Anthony Davis he's unguardable for the Warriors. There's no one on the Warriors who could stop Anthony Davis. And if they stay at 7, they could probably get a game off of Golden State. I think, maybe like a game 3 or game 4. And just Anthony Davis could really just hammer them inside, give them a lot of trouble. And then obviously San Antonio, if they're at 6, I think they'll beat Portland. So Golden State's road to the NBA Finals could be New Orleans Pelicans, San Antonio Spurs, Houston Rockets, which that would be extremely difficult. That's a gauntlet. That's really tough.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, I've never really tried that. How is it watching two games at once?
Oh, it's fine. I mean, I'm just sort of kind of glancing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's because this one's the one that you and I are watching, the Minnesota and Rockets, this 20-point game almost, and then this New Orleans game is about 5 points.
Oh,
So it's just
I
kind of
didn't even notice that. Yeah, look at
yeah,
that. It is a blowout. And now it's a real
yeah,
big blowout. Jeez.
yeah. But
Ryan
I mean, yeah,
Anderson.
Ryan Anderson with a very interesting looking jump shot. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, because I always see the sports offerings for like a NBA League Pass and like a NFL Game Pass where like they have like four games going on at once, and like you always see those control rooms where there's like 16 games on the screen. And like I just never understand that because I can barely focus on one game. But yeah,
yeah,
I guess if you're not paying attention.
yeah.
Oh, that's another free. Jeez, the Timberwolves are falling apart here.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's such a big difference between the 1 and 2 seed in the West and then like the 3 through 10 seeds.
yeah. It's really strange actually. But Minnesota, I think I think it they can probably get to the second round if Jimmy Butler is healthy. So
Yeah, definitely. It's just whenever they run into the Rockets Warriors, but it's
because I really think I think Oklahoma City will probably lose in the first round
yeah
this season.
they
So
they deserve it. They haven't been very good, and like that Carmelo Anthony trade really blew up in their face, and I mean it's frankly
there
their
was
fault.
no reason to acquire him. There was no
Absolutely.
reason to
You know
acquire him.
what it was? It was Sam Presti being like, "Oh, I want a big free too," and like it
Yeah,
was just
He's not a big three player anymore.
no, he's not good.
Steven Adams is so good. Steven Adams had 25 points today. If you feed Steven Adams properly and you play him in the pick and roll extremely well, Steven Adams can be the third piece to your big three. He's amazing, and he's a two-way player. All Carmelo Anthony does is he stops the ball and he tries and hits post fades and he does it inefficiently. He does it about 40% of the time, and he's shooting like 34% from three this season, so he's not even doing that well. And I mean, there was no reason to like honestly, at this point, the only reason that they have Carmelo Anthony is so that they can hope that in a playoff game, he goes off for one game and wins them one game.
Yeah, and
That's it.
and
And
like
that's a slim chance, too.
yeah, and like the whole thing was just like oh my gosh, he just people like to say that he's a good scorer, but he's not even a good scorer at this point.
I'm so glad he didn't go to Houston. I think he would have messed up a lot of things.
Oh yeah, like he would have just taken up space, and like he would have been complaining about not getting enough playing time because whatever D'Antoni would not have been giving
No,
him the minutes.
Because Trevor Ariza is an amazing. He fits the system perfectly because he's a 3-and-D player. He takes so much pressure off of Harden. And if Carmelo Anthony was starting over Trevor Ariza, this team would just not even be the same. So, yeah, there's no Houston is also Carmelo Anthony. I feel like another reason that the Rockets didn't pursue him that heavily was because
Yes, they're
he's
smart.
basically he goes against their analytics completely because obviously Houston prefers 3/2, and Carmelo Anthony is like basically a mid-range only kind of player. So
Yeah, and I have so much respect for Daryl Morey in that respect. And I was listening to the Lab today as a little preparation for the podcast, and something they were talking about with David Griffin, the former Cavs GM, was just how lucky the Rockets have been to have a coach that's on board with analytics, a GM that thinks exactly the same as the coach, and he's on board with it, an owner that is super on board with just letting the GM and the head coach do whatever they want and use as much money as they want to, and then having a star player that's also willing to do what the coach says and plays the game the way that
yep,
D'Antoni likes it.
and then acquiring a free agent who's willing to buy into all of that.
Yeah, like it just everything has gone perfectly for them, and a lot of the
Yeah,
arguments for why they're the model for how to win in the NBA without tanking. Well, they needed a lot of things to go right to have
yeah.
a system
Mm-hmm.
like that work. Oh,
Houston, I think
jeez, Ryan
they
Anderson.
they're okay. Ryan Anderson can actually knock down from very
Yes,
deep.
he's the firepower that we're talking about.
He really is, and he's no use on an NBA floor other than the fact that he can shoot the three.
Yeah,
And the fact that he's on this team is wow. But anyways, yeah, Houston they're one of the more interesting. I love them in the NBA. Like the fact that they kind of came out of nowhere, because last year they were a 3 seed and everyone was really impressed, but they really hadn't broken out yet because I think people still doubted their ability. Because prior to that, in 2016, they were the 8th seed, and then the year before they lost in the conference finals, and that doubt was sort of proven. So I kind of like what Houston has done. I really appreciate the fact that they've really emerged as a third contender, because it's really only been Golden State and Cleveland the past 2 years. So
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty much all in the Western Conference, and then the only thing left in the Eastern Conference has just been the Raptors starting to pull away for the first seed. Do you think
yeah,
they have much of a chance against these like bottom four teams in the East aside from the 76ers?
who, Toronto?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think Toronto will definitely. I think Toronto will make it to the conference finals. I think that Toronto is gonna wipe the floor with Boston. Boston is decimated with injuries. They don't have Marcus Smart. They lost Daniel Tice for the season. Kyrie Irving is battling knee soreness. He's probably. I've heard I read somewhere that he might sit out for the rest of the regular season. That's not good, because
Yeah,
then when he
that's
gets to
really
the playoff,
bad.
it's a knee injury, so that means that he's not going to be able. He's knee soreness that he's battling. He's been talking about probably having surgery in the off season to repair it, because it's the kneecap that he broke a few years ago. It'd be
Ooh,
arthroscopic surgery,
that's
so
bad.
it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, still having surgery. So because of knee soreness, that obviously means that he hasn't been practicing on that leg. It means he hasn't been keeping up with cardio. So if you rest Kyrie Irving for the rest of the regular season and then you play him in the playoffs, he's probably not going to be in game shape. He's probably going to have some rust. So, Boston Boston is probably the team that's most susceptible to losing in the first round, but Boston will probably make it to the second round, lose to Cleveland or Toronto, and then I think probably get a Cleveland Toronto Eastern Conference Finals. Um, but yeah, I mean, Toronto, I think they're the only team in that. Golden State has slipped on defense a little bit, so Toronto is now the only team in the NBA that's top five in offense and defense. They're a two-way team. Their bench is amazing. The only concern I have with Toronto really is that because your rotations have to get much shorter in the playoffs, I'm not sure how much of a factor their bench is going to be able to be. And also, DeMar DeRozan's three-point shooting is still a worry to me.
Yeah, my only concern is just how are they going to look in the playoffs? If they look fine in the first round and like the Kyle Lowry is playing at his normal rate and like they're just
Yeah,
playing at a similar pace to how they're playing right now, they're going to the Eastern Conference Finals. But if they look like how they have every year so far, where they just take a big
yeah.
step back and they barely eke out of the first round, that's not a good sign.
Yeah, honestly, I think the best thing Toronto can do is they should get to the conference finals convincingly. Like they should
Yeah.
get there with like a 4 game. Like they should sweep their first round matchup and then go for like either a 5 game series against their second round
Oh,
matchup, or like a really convincing 6 game series. Or they really should try and get to the conference finals to at least instill a little bit of worry in Cleveland that like, oh, this Toronto team might be a little bit different. Because I mean, even last year they were an extremely good team. They had the same record as Cleveland, but they got swept because they barely made it out of the first round against Milwaukee.
yeah.
Um,
And that
so
was exactly what I was thinking of right there.
yeah, but Toronto, I mean, they're going to be a 61 win team. So at the end, honestly, I feel like it's a little bit. It might. I'll feel really bad for them if it ends up being a like a 2015 Atlanta Hawks thing where they win 60 games just for LeBron to sweep them in the conference finals. But
Yeah, I don't think so because and it seems like they've been progressing this entire time. But yeah,
yeah, I don't know, but I think Toronto, honestly, if you catch Cleveland, like if Cleveland does not get their defense together, I won't be surprised if Toronto makes it to the NBA Finals. I don't think they will, because obviously playoff LeBron is just a completely different player than regular season LeBron, because he steps it up defensively and he plays with so much more care, and he doesn't do nearly as much experimenting as he does in the regular season. He kind of just does everything that needs to be done to win. So LeBron James I think he's at that point in his career where he doesn't really deserve to be gauged before April, because I mean, he's basically made it clear to this point that he really kind of just uses the regular season to prepare for the playoffs and just to pace himself.
yeah,
So I mean, LeBron James is probably going to become a really, 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 really amazing again when the playoffs roll around. He's probably going to step it up defensively too, because LeBron, he always communicates defensively, and any time that LeBron looks really engaged, their defense looks way, way better, because he's the anchor of the defense. Like he tells people where to go, he communicates, he tells people when to switch, he comes over for rotations, he tells people when to help. So obviously he's going to do that in the playoffs. So I'm not counting Cleveland out at all, but if for some reason LeBron just kind of doesn't want another finals loss or something like that,
Yeah.
whatever it is, whatever it may be, I think the best option for LeBron is, I think that they're still the favorite in the East, even though Toronto's playing really well.
Yeah, and something that he's definitely going to have to do this season is turn it on at least by the second round, because I know last year he basically coasted through the Pacers series and then the second round
Yeah.
matchup, so he's going to have to turn it on a little earlier.
But basically, LeBron, I don't think was even trying in the Eastern Conference until they lost that one game to Boston.
Yeah.
Like he wiped the floor with Indiana, he wiped the floor with Toronto, and then they beat the Celtics in Game 1 of that series, I think by like almost 40 points.
Yeah.
And Boston only scored like 75 points, or something like that. It was some really low number.
But then Isaiah Thomas got hurt.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas got hurt, and then they won that one game where Avery Bradley hit the game winner, and then after that, LeBron was like, "All right, okay, relax, that's enough." But yeah, another concern I have with Cleveland, I wanted to bring this up when we were talking about them earlier, is I'm a little concerned with the way that Jordan Clarkson is playing, because he really seems to think that he's like Kobe Bryant. Like he plays so much isolation, and he just kind of like he dribbles the ball so much, and then he'll pull up for a reckless shot. He doesn't even stand still when he gets the ball for a transition three. He doesn't even stand still. Like he shoots the ball while he's still leaning forward. So I hope Jordan Clarkson gets himself under control, because I would really like for all of Cleveland's role players to actually play their roles properly instead of trying to be bigger than they are. But other than Cleveland's defense is a concern, but overall it's just their defense and their chemistry. I think they'll probably start to build their chemistry properly when Kevin Love comes back, because I feel like maybe to a degree in Cleveland, Tyronn Lue and LeBron are sort of like, what's the point in building chemistry if we're just going to have to build it again when Kevin Love comes back? So maybe they're just holding off. But
I don't think that's the best strategy, but yeah.
It's a horrible strategy, but I'm just saying what I think they might be doing.
Yeah.
If I was that, what I would do is I would put a lineup out there that I know, like I would put out the players that I know I'm going to play with Kevin Love. So I would put like George Hill, Rodney Hood, LeBron James, and Larry Nance, and then I would put in Chetty Osman or Jeff Green in where you would put Kevin Love, and just play your schemes as though Jeff Green is Kevin Love. Obviously the skill set isn't the same, but rather than being a shooting rebounder like Kevin Love is, Jeff Green can be a slashing rebounder. So they should probably start doing that now, because if they're to do that, I think that's probably the best lineup that they can do to hold themselves over until Kevin Love gets back, because they'll be really good defensively, because Jeff Green's a good defender, Nance can defend, LeBron when he wants to can defend, George Hill can defend, and then in theory Rodney should be able to defend because he's 6'8". So
yeah, and that's definitely what they need to be doing. They need to just treat Kevin Love coming back as if like they just brought in a new player from a trade, but that is not what they're doing right now. Like they're still trying to like feel out and like halfway through March, which is a little ridiculous at this point.
At the end of the day, though, Kevin Love is not going to be a difficult player to integrate because he's a catch and shoot player primarily. It's sort of just a matter of how Kevin Love will play, I guess, because LeBron at this point is sort of doing absolutely everything on his own. Even when he's having absolutely phenomenal games, Cleveland is just unable to do anything to help him. I was extremely disappointed in the way the other Cavs played in the Portland Trailblazers game, because LeBron put them in a fantastic position to win that game. They were down 3 with like 5 minutes left, but then Jordan Clarkson took consecutive reckless shots that just clanked, and then they ended up losing the game because Portland scored off of both of those misses. So I just hope that the team around LeBron sums it up. But at the same time, if LeBron is to lose in the playoffs, I would rather he lose I think the loss that he should take if he loses is a loss to Toronto in the conference finals, because if he loses to Kyrie in the second round, it's going to look like Kyrie's decision to make the trade was validated, and it'll make LeBron look really bad. And then if he loses in the first round, that'll end his streak of never losing in the first round, because LeBron James has never lost in the first round.
No, and he shouldn't. Like this Celtics team has not been as good as perpetrated. And like at this point, do you think it would be even worth bringing Gordon Hayward back if he was healthy?
Oh, Brad Stevens already ruled him out for the rest of the season.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he's not. Even if he was, I don't think there'd be a point, because like at this, everyone on the roster is already injured anyway. So it's not like, and they're like, unless Toronto falls off, there's no way that Boston is going to get the 1 seed. So there wouldn't be a point even if he could.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that wraps up most of the stuff going on in the NBA. I'm just gonna scroll through the news right now, see if anything big happened. Yeah, we can talk about this. We never mentioned this. Do you think that there's anything wrong with the refs this year? I keep hearing about players complaining about it, and
Um,
obviously the writers looking for some problem. Be like, oh, are the refs horrible? We're seeing a lot of technical fouls.
they before the All Star break, I would say yes, there was a problem, but the Players Association and the Referees Association met at the All Star break to air out some of the differences and disagreements and stuff. So since the All Star break, I think the officiating has been fine. The weird thing about refs have just, I feel like they've just been taking a lot less crap from the players this year. They've been more willing to call technical fouls when they feel like a player is being rude to them and stuff. So honestly, I feel like that's okay because I'm tired of players like Draymond Green and even DeMarcus Cousins and even players that I like. Like I hate when players just yell at the refs and then they get upset with them when the ref gives them a technical foul. Like, oh, that was a really nice pass.
Yeah, Crawford just got that
Oh
smooth.
wow, oh wow. But
He didn't know what was going on.
that was some Chris Paul magic. Oh my God, it's 46-70.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, as I was saying, I hate when players yell at the referees and then get upset when they get called for a technical foul. Like, if you have a problem with the referee, then do it like Kawhi Leonard does. Kawhi Leonard, I think, only has like one or two technical fouls in his entire career. So just don't yell at the referees. But just talk to them, and then they'll be more receptive to what you're saying to them. So,
Oh, definitely.
I don't really think it's an issue. I think it's just been overblown. The referees there have been some really bad calls this season, but I mean there always are, so it's not really that big a deal.
Yeah, and I almost feel like it's just the players looking for something to yell at because, like, in the past couple of years, you'll see them complain about, oh, the hack a Shack is getting out of control, or I don't really know what
Yeah.
they were complaining about last year. Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit ridiculous that the NBA even made a rule to combat hack-a-Shack because
Yeah, I still haven't gotten over that.
like how can you make a rule in the NBA which has however many like 518 players? How can you make a rule that only really like it benefits only like maybe 3 to 5 guys? Like it benefits Andre Drummond, DeAndre Jordan, Clint Capella, and just any other center who's not good at shooting free throws. Like it really doesn't benefit anyone other than them.
I feel like they just had to do it though because they were running into a situation where it was almost becoming like baseball with how much the play was being stopped because of it, and it was just making the product worse. But yeah, in an ideal world where you don't have to worry about something like that, you shouldn't get rid of a rule like that.
Or you could just train your players to shoot free throws.
Yeah, but there's always going to be a new player that's bad at free throws. Like, it was just a
Lonzo
never.
Ball. They're playing hack Alonzo now because Lonzo Ball is a 48% free throw shooter.
Wait, he's at 48?
48 for
Wow,
Lonzo Ball.
that's
Yeah,
bad.
that's very bad.
LeVar needs to be
He's a horrible free throw shooter.
LeVar needs to work on those free throws.
Yeah, honestly.
Okay.
But it's weird because you know how Lonzo Ball has the funky jump shot.
Yeah, I guess it comes up there.
No, he shoot from the free throw line. He shoots it in normal form.
Oh, that's weird.
So it's weird because he doesn't shoot the jump shot and the free throw the same way. He shoots the free throw conventionally, but then he shoots his jump shot unorthodox. So he's having his jump shot is having some internal issues.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird, but it is what it is.
Yeah, maybe you should try the Rick Barry underhand. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why more players don't do that. I mean, some people say it's embarrassing, but at the end of the day,
it's not.
It's less embarrassing than
I feel like it's embarrassing if you miss.
Yeah. Oh wow! The breaking news: Texas A&M just defeated North Carolina.
Huh. Okay.
That's NCAA, but
yeah,
just a tangent. But yeah. Anyways.
Okay. Yeah. So that's pretty much all that's going on in the news. So I guess we can get into our topic for today, which is going to be video games and sports. How has NBA 2K changed how we look at basketball? So I guess I'll start by asking, do you play 2K at all, or have you ever?
Oh yes, I've been playing 2K since NBA 2K15, and I mean the game. At first, when I started playing the game, I was a huge fan of it. But I mean, I loved. So basically, the reason that I started playing NBA 2K15 was because in the summer of 2015, I was fasting. I'm a Muslim, so I observe Ramadan. So I was fasting, and during the day, I needed some stuff to do and just to kind of pass the time until I could eat and drink.
Yeah.
So I downloaded NBA. This was before I was even actually an NBA fan.
Well,
Like I
here,
hadn't even
let
watched
me stop you there
basketball.
because I'm actually curious to know about this. Like, no, I know, like, eating, it's not that big of a deal. I'll go like 10, 11 hours, like in a day, and not eat anything. But how's the drinking for that entire time?
Oh, not drinking anything is probably the most difficult part. You can't drink any, like you cannot drink or eat anything at all for 16 to 17 hours. So,
Yeah, and
um,
especially during the summer when like the sun's
oh
up
yeah,
forever.
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Um,
yeah. So
that is very difficult, but I mean, you push through. If you take, I mean, I sort of cheat the system a little bit where I stay up until like 3, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock when you're gonna actually eat, and then I just sort of sleep then. So then when I wake up, I have less hours to wait until I can eat again. So, but overall,
yeah, okay.
it's
So
difficult, but
yeah,
it's fun.
going back to what you were saying.
But yeah, so this was even before I was an NBA fan. I started playing. I downloaded NBA 2K15 because like everyone, like all my friends from like middle school were like, "Oh, dude, like you don't follow any sports." So I was like, "All right, whatever." So I decided to play this 2K game, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the my career aspect of it when I first started playing. Uh, I remember this because this was before I knew anything about basketball, and this was in 2015. So
Oh
I
wow.
was I was looking up stuff about I was looking stuff up about uh, teams that I could join. So I decided to make a shooting guard, and I was a shooting guard. And then it told me, as a shooting guard, I should go to the Thunder because as a Thunder, I would play with Kevin Durant, who was on the Thunder at the time, and Russell Westbrook. So I joined the Thunder. I was a 3 point shooter, and my career player was a 3 point shooter, and it was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed that a lot. So I ended up getting NBA 2K16, and that was the year where they implemented a different story mode and stuff. But basically, so I've had NBA 2K15, 16, 17, and now 18. And while 2K is fun, I just think that they need something new because the story modes are always just so stale and boring and like they don't they're kind of cringy too. Like there's nothing that there's really nothing to work for in the game either. It's like if you pay money, you can upgrade your player, and then you upgrade your player to being a certain way, and then there's nothing more to do in the story mode. The only thing that you can really do with your player is just go online and compete against a bunch of other people. But obviously, if there's no reward for that, that's going to get boring. So, and 2K, it's sort of become almost like a pay to play game where you have to spend your money on virtual currency to even get very good at the game. Um, and then the other aspects of the game, aside from the my career aspect, is like my team, which I think definitely needs a revamp. That hasn't been too interesting. My league also kind of boring. You don't really do anything except for assign your rosters and then simulate the whole season. So 2K is fun when it comes out at the beginning of the year. You get excited about the new features. You'll make your player. You'll do something different. But the whole game, in my opinion, really needs a rework from top to bottom, where they just add a bunch of new stuff and storylines that are actually intriguing, where one decision actually affects something. Because in the game as it is right now, basically you pick the team that you want to try out for, you build your player, and then no matter what team you have, it ends up being the same story. So
Yeah, so that's a lot to dig into. I guess I'll start from the top. So what exactly led you to my career versus like my league or just online play?
well, basically, when I started playing it, I like the coolest aspect to me was like, oh, like I can make an NBA player and play on a team. Like, obviously everyone has at some point had like whatever off dream about like, oh, like it'd be so cool to play in the NBA. So you obviously get to see that like if you make an NBA player and then you get to choose his position, you get to choose his attributes, you get to choose what he looks like, all that stuff. So that just appealed the most to me because playing online was sort of just like I wasn't any good at the game because I just picked it up, so I wasn't going to go get killed online. And then my team to me just didn't strike because it's like a card collecting game the way the style is. So
Yeah.
you just kind of you pick cards and then you grab then like you pick up teams and then you have to or players and then you have to slowly assemble a team. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So, like, did you design your player to like represent what you think you would be like in real life? Like, obviously not like you're having all the ratings be at 50, but like, oh, I know when I play basketball, I'm like really good at 3 point shooting. Not me. I'm saying like a hypothetical sense of horrible at three
yeah,
point
yeah.
shooting, or like, oh, I know I'm good at post play. Like, did you do that, or were you just like, oh, it'd be cool to be a really good ball handler? I want that.
Yeah. No, I did it more the latter. I didn't do much of the like I didn't design it how I would play. Like I mean, I'm not really that good at basketball, but like when I play, like obviously I shoot mostly jump shots. I don't really go to the paint that much, but I didn't make a sharpshooter or anything like that. I just made a player who I thought would be the most fun to play with. Like I upgraded the player's playmaking ability so he could pass the ball really well, mid range ability because I like pulling up in the mid range in the game, and then 3 point shoot and defense. Obviously, like I kind of just built the best player I thought possible for a shooting guard because that was the first player I made, but then the next year in 2K16, I ended up making a what did I make? I made a 6'7" point guard, and then the next year in 2K17, I also made a 6'7" playmaking point guard. That was the year that they introduced archetypes, where you basically chose what kind of player you want to be. So you could be a playmaker, sharpshooter, shot creator, lockdown defender, rebound, glass cleaner, which is a rebounder, a post scorer, paint protector, which is like Ben Wallace type of player, and then a slasher, a player who strictly drives to the rim. So I ended up making a playmaking point guard, and that was a lot of fun. Handling the ball, passing, and all that stuff it was kind of like playing with Steve Nash almost. So It was exciting to do that. But the game just like the game itself is fun, but the problem with it is that it doesn't keep your interest long enough for you to play it until the next game comes out because there's nothing intriguing about the story. Like in all the 2K games, the story basically is you have some sort of adversity, you make it to the NBA either through the draft or getting picked up from a tryout, and then you just play in the NBA and then you just play games. Like there's really nothing like it's not incorporated into the story that your goal is to win the championship. It's not incorporated into your story that you want to win the scoring title or you want to be the MVP or anything like that. Like none of that stuff is accounted for. So basically, I think the way that the 2K could improve the game is to sort of based on the team that you go to in the game, like they should sort of have something with the team. Like if you go to a rebuilding team, then your goal should be to like make your teammates better and develop chemistry. Or like if you go to like Cleveland or Golden State or San Antonio, your goal should be we're going to compete for a championship this year. So that kind of thing. I just think that the game sort of needs to adapt a little bit more to how real life is, because if you're just making a player and then you just play a bunch of games, that's going to get boring really quickly.
Yeah, I can understand that. And we'll get into that later. I just want to really see how deep I can get with like what led you to choose the players that you did, and like your kind of play style. So like why did you originally go for a shooting guard? Was it just because it's more fun to score?
The reason I went with shooting guard is because since I wasn't experienced at the game, I thought that, again, at the time I knew nothing about basketball, so I I assumed that when I looked up the positions, from everything that I was reading, it sounded like the most important position was a point guard, and I was like, oh, like I'm new to this game, I probably shouldn't be a point guard. Like the team probably shouldn't be relying on me. So I just went with shooting guard because they're both guards, and I was like, oh, what's a shooting guard? So
Okay, yeah,
like I was completely new to basketball at this point. Like the way that I initially learned about like basically in terms of how I learned about basketball was basically I started playing 2K in 2015, and then I liked the game a lot. So as a result of liking the game, I was like, oh, maybe I'll watch basketball. So then the first NBA season that I watched was the 2015-2016 NBA season, where Cleveland won the championship. That was my first NBA season. So
I got you, and that's interesting because I had thought you had said freshman year that like you had been watching it since like you were 8 or something, but I guess I just
oh
yeah.
yeah, that's probably about something else, but.
Yeah, probably. So, like, how far did you usually get in the career before you just got sick of playing games?
I mean, honestly, I would simulate through. I would play a couple regular season games just to get my averages pretty nice, and then I would just because once you play a couple games, your averages, and then I simulated the entire regular season, and then I would just play through the playoffs to win a championship, and I would just sort of pile up career accolades like 2-time NBA champion, 2-time scoring title, MVP, all this stuff. So.
Okay, gotcha. And you obviously prefer the my career with the story it is now. I mean, has it made that much of an improvement? And how is like the story once it gets past like the first season?
I mean, they don't continue the story after you get past your first season. It's like you basically it's just too generic. I feel like at this point, I feel like my career is definitely the most like it's the most explored part of the game because everyone likes to make their own player. Because then with that player, you go online and you play in the My Park and in Pro Am, which is you assemble a team of multiple people, all that kind of stuff. So I just feel like for players that don't like to play online as much, so like me personally, I don't play My Park or Pro Am that much. Occasionally, when I have a friend who wants to do it, we'll go online and play a few games. But for a player who mainly just kind of wants to be able to play a game as a player and have a good time doing it, it just gets too stale. So I don't think the story really has made that much improvement. Every year, it's just it seems like every year it gets more corny. Like in NBA 2K15, the story is that you're an undrafted player, so then you have to try out for a team on a 10-day contract, and then you get signed to it. And then after that story finishes, you just play in NBA games, and that's it. And then 2K16, you play 8 games as a rookie. Then your 8 games are super scrutinized by the media, and then you have a best friend who's like acting out and stuff. And then once you get through those 8 games, the story doesn't do anything. And then 2017, you have a teammate who's he was drafted he was drafted low in the draft, so he's a little bit jealous of you. But then once you sort out all your issues, you guys dominate the league, and that's the story. And then this year in NBA 2K18, the story is that you get picked up from a street ball tournament. A scout finds you, and then you after that's sorted out and you make it to the league, you're just a star player. So the story to me is just kind of new. It's new every year, but it's really not like anything exciting. So
Yeah. Speaking of exciting, are you seeing this halftime performance? This is
oh yeah,
ridiculous.
let me mute mine real quick. Sorry.
Oh my goodness. This guy's like, I don't even know what's going on. He like set up like a giant tripod where like he just stacked a bunch of these. I don't even know what it would be. Like it looks like a Connects tower where that like goes up like 20 feet in the air, and like he's just doing a handstand on it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like the story, I was always hearing that they made improvements, but I was never really into my career, so I never got a big chance to really
Yeah.
check it out. I started with NBA 2K around top 10. We're gonna have to go over this after it's all over, but
Yeah.
I started with NBA 2K 13, and I really just stuck with it. To be honest, because like I've never liked having to just completely change all my strategies and do it for new players. I like to just know which players I are good and like which ones are the really big draft steals and stuff. So
Yeah.
I just did like a my career up to game 66, and because I'm a nihilist, I like to play every single thing possible. So I got
Yeah.
like 66 games into his career, and I kind of just got what's the word for it? Burnt out at that point.
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what I feel
Yeah,
like as well.
and that was like no story. So yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and the story here is just kind of they just hammer it in like it's all just, and if you can't even like like there's just no it's just unrealistic too. Like there's no actual adversity really. Like it's just if you're good enough to just you can just set the difficulty really low and then you can score like 70 as a rookie.
yeah, and like that was another problem with me. I always had the difficulty at like the absolute max because I
Yeah.
just want to kill myself. But
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, I always chose power forwards for some reason. I just like the position. I think it represents pretty well how I play. Like
Oh,
I'm not that tall by any means, but like I'm a pretty lanky guy, and I'm pretty good at defense, and I usually
yeah.
just drive to the basket. But
Hmm.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that was always my thing, and it seems like everyone else is always really big on either doing the shooting guards or the point guards, but I was never really into
Yeah.
that because I'm not good with 3-point shooting.
Yeah. I mean, I make a like typically I make 2 players for my career. Like I make like a big man and a guard. Usually, just I mean, because at the end of the day, like if you since the game gets so stale, it's helpful to have 2 players to kind of like change it up a little bit when you do get bored because
Yeah.
like it's just a completely different thing. Like as opposed to making plays on the perimeter and shooting and stuff, like you can be a big man and you can defend and then rebound and all that stuff. So
Yeah, but whenever I play 2K, that was never something that I really did my career. I was always really into doing the my league and like the my
my
friend
league, mhm.
and like the my
Yeah,
GM because like I just love treating it as if I'm the new GM of a team and I could just
yeah,
redraft it and be like, oh, this is my team now. How
yeah.
does it look? Like, were you ever into that?
Yeah, so once my career got way too boring for me, I played a lot of my GM. Um, and I always pick the Celtics because the Celtics have a bunch of assets in the
Yeah,
game with the draft picks and stuff, and
that was always how I did it too.
yeah, so basically I would trade the Celtics assets for a player, and then I would just build a super team basically.
Yeah, it's a good strategy. Okay, we just finished the top 10 plays. What'd you think of the top 10 list?
I like Jabari Parker's play and Lance Stevenson's play.
Yeah,
Lance Stevenson's was pretty cool.
I don't know how I missed that LeBron dunk. And his beard looks fantastic now. It used to look kind of crappy, but now it
Oh
just looks
yeah, he
awesome.
really grew it out.
Yeah.
There's one NBA analyst. His name is Colin Cowherd. He thinks that LeBron's beard is a message to James Harden.
It's kind of wider than James Harden, but it's not as long.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck. Okay, so with NBA 2K, I'm absolutely with you on online play. It's something that I always want to get into, but I'm always too much of a cheapskate to actually buy Xbox Live or whatever the PS4 equivalent is.
Yeah,
So
the VC and stuff in the game. Yeah.
yeah, so like I never get into that, and like also you just can't compete unless you buy stuff, and obviously I'm not going to do that. And like
Yeah.
also just card collecting, I'm not really a fan of that. I don't like the whole premise of you have to like what am I trying to say? Like the premise where you have to dang, I lost it. But what I would like online to play to be like is you get like a certain overall that your team can have in total. Like they just sum up all the players on your team and their overall.
Mhm.
What I was trying to say was like you choose one team. Like oh, it's the Cavaliers versus the Celtics or something.
Yeah.
That's your online game. I don't like that. I like it where you get to draft your own team still, but you just set it up so that like you have a cap on like the amount of overall you can have, and you can just choose a bunch of players that all add up to that overall, and then that's your team. And I feel like that
Yeah.
makes all the teams fairly even. It prioritizes you figuring out draft steals and all that stuff, and I think that'd be a great system.
Hmm. Also, the thing about like that I would prefer really. So in 2016, I think was the best 2K that I've played. So in 2016, you played 3 games in high school, and then based on the 3 games that you play in high school, you get to choose a college that you want to play in the NCAA for,
Yeah, I
and
thought that
then
was pretty cool.
yeah. So then and then based on how you played in the first 3 games, that would determine your draft stock for your first game in college, and then the rest of the games that you played in college determined where you would get drafted. So I think that what NBA 2K should, I think that they should really expand upon that idea because I think one of the best aspect of, in my opinion, like one of the coolest aspects about the NBA in general, even though you and I have talked about so much reform to it, is the NBA draft. Like,
Yeah,
you just get to watch it, see where a player gets picked. So, and then even like the game I don't think should decide for you that you want to be a one and done because like what if you want to be like Steph Curry and play 3 years in college, or what if you want to be like Tim Duncan and play 4 years in college? But obviously you wouldn't have to play the whole year in college, like playing 33 college games. Like you could just play like one, two, three, four.
oh, I want those 33 college games.
Oh yeah, well yeah, you would love to, but
Yeah,
I'm
just
not sure
change the
the rest of.
options.
But yeah. And then you could play like and then become a 4-time NCAA champion, become the only player ever to do that, and then dominate the NBA, and then like something like that, to
Kareem
where
didn't
like
do that.
you, huh?
And Kareem didn't do that.
Oh no, I don't know if he did, but
Yeah, because he played under John Wooden and they won like 6 in a row, but maybe
no,
not.
maybe he did. I'm not sure, but like in the modern NBA, I guess,
Yeah,
like recently, no player has ever won that many
yeah,
NCAA titles. So it basically, if you just to have more options and more freedom, and just a more of an interactive story where your decisions actually affect what you do, because like if I go to the Cavs, and the main reason that I want to play for the Cavs is because I want to help LeBron James win a ring, like that should be like a theme, like you know what I'm saying, like I just feel like, or on another thing that they could do just to make it a little bit more interesting is, so in Madden, for the Madden story mode, for your player, you can choose what you want it with what you want to be. Like you can choose, do you want to be a first round draft pick, do you want to be a mid round draft pick, or do you want to go undrafted? And then based on that choice, you start off with different things. Like if you're an undrafted player, then your ceiling is a little bit higher because whatever. And then if you're a first round draft pick, you start off better, but you there's basically upsides and downsides to everything that are all sort of make it equal. So you actually have a choice to make rather than just I'm gonna make a player, I'm gonna get really good, and I'm just gonna do what I want. Like it just gets too boring too quickly for me.
100%. And like you just have to give as many options as you can to have your career be different and just make it so that there's an actual replayability to the game. And I know that was something they were trying to go for with like making a more diverse storyline going into the game, but it seems like they didn't succeed with that at all. And
Yeah,
what
I
the
think they
heck?
should just resort back to being like 2K16. Like that was the best game.
Are you getting attacked by an animal?
Oh, me? Sorry.
Don't worry about it. But yeah, Kareem, apparently he got screwed by, I forgot about this, back in the early days of the NCAA when it was even more corrupt than it is today. They had
Yeah.
a thing called the freshman rule where if you were a freshman, you could not play on the actual team. So
Oh, what?
yeah,
Okay.
basically
Dumb.
like you were on like a freshman team. So the freshman team won the actually, I have no clue if they won the national championship, but they probably did because the normal team won it that year. He wasn't on it, unfortunately, but the other 3 years he got the championship. So you can say
Okay.
he should have won all 4 years, but technically he didn't because he got screwed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, going off your point, just create more diverse gameplay because if you want people actually replaying your game, you have to give them a reason to replay your game. And the biggest
Yeah.
thing with that college thing is I thought it was a fantastic addition, honestly. But I really like that they gave 10 options for colleges, and heck, I would even love to see even more. And even if they just wanted to like sign a licensing deal with like one conference and just have all the teams from that conference be options, I think that'd be a fantastic thing.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's weird how they changed it. Because like in 2K16, the teams were like, it
Yeah.
was
Yeah, I can go down the list actually. I have it in front of me. You had the Arizona Wildcats, Georgetown Hoyas, the
yeah,
Kansas Jayhawks, the Louisville Cardinals, the Michigan Wolverines, Texas Longhorns, UCLA Bruins, Connecticut Huskies, which is kind of a weird addition, the
yeah,
Villanova Wildcats, and Wisconsin Badgers.
yeah. And then the next year they changed it to like Michigan State, Georgetown, and a couple others. But um, but yeah, I'm not sure why that happened. But at the end of the day, like it'd just be cool, like it, to or you know, this like every like basically the way to get into the NBA essentially because of the one and done rule is like you play in high school then you play in college. So if you want to make an NBA my career story and it's really the player's career, then I feel like the 2K16 did that properly. Like you should start you should start as a senior in high school to where you get to affect where you go to college, which thus affects where you get picked in the NBA.
Yeah.
But I feel like it should be more challenging. I feel like you shouldn't just be able to play on rookie in 4 college games and then get picked number 1 overall in the draft. Like that's dumb.
Yeah, and like something that the MLB the show does, which I really like, is that if you're playing on a lower difficulty, they will change the not the gameplay, but they will change like how they progress the story and like you have to do a lot better if you actually want stuff to happen. Like
Exactly.
if
Like
you're in like
that's how
the
it should be.
yeah, like if you're in the minor leagues or something and you're hitting like 700 and you have like something like 200 home runs, they won't promote you. They'll be like, no, you got either turn up your difficulty or you got to do even more than that. And that's something that 2K needs to learn.
Yeah. I mean they took a small step this year where they removed the rookie difficulty this year.
Oh, cool.
But still like pro difficulty is not that challenging for players to pick up and learn, so
Yeah, and I don't even think I like them getting rid of the rookie difficulty. If you want to play on a low difficulty, you should be allowed to. It's just tailor the gameplay to that.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know. 2K to me is just they've become way too much about microtransactions to where like
Yeah.
literally
Well,
everything
that's
costs
all
like
gaming today,
yeah, it's I mean, 2K16
except
I
for
think was the best
Nintendo.
2K. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and that's really all that can be said there. I don't have high hopes for that getting any better in the near future.
yeah, I mean it's gonna stay the way it is probably, unless obviously people just simply stop buying the game, which they won't
Yeah,
do.
that's
But
not happening.
yeah, I think there. I wish that NBA Live would make a stronger push because NBA Live 18 actually did something very interesting that I liked. Their thing was that their story mode was that you're a junior in you're sophomore in college, and you tear your ACL.
Ooh.
and then you come back your junior year of college, and then you have an amazing season to where you're now projected to be a top pick in the NBA draft again, and like everyone is calling you the comeback kid, and basically, you play in like the Drew League with like James Harden and DeMar DeRozan. You play in like Venice Beach. You play in Rutger Park in New York. Like basically you go around like the United States and you play a lot of street ball, and then like you sort of develop a better reputation with some of the players and stuff, and then like the type of player that you can pick is also cool because it fits more to what the NBA is now. So like rather than being a point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, or center,
Yeah.
the way that they do it is you choose to either be a guard, a wing, or a big.
Oh, great.
Which is like that is how the NBA is now because like there's really no such thing as like a power forward necessarily anymore. Like so it's more just like if you're a big man, then you're a big man. You play either 4 or 5. If you're like Steph Curry, like you can play with Sean Livingston with like it's not really like it's positionless basketball is more of a thing now because of everything that players can do. Like Ben Simmons is 7 feet tall playing point guard, and Giannis plays point guard sometimes. So the way that they did that was cool, and then their archetype system was a lot cooler too because like it would give you could pick one, and then based on what you pick, you would have a specific skill that you would not be able to do unless you were that player. So like if you're and every archetype in NBA Live 18 represents a player in the NBA. So basically, you could make a point shooter, which is Steph Curry. You could be a 3-and-D player, which is Mike Conley. You could be a pure point guard like Chris Paul, I believe. And then like if you're a taller wing, then like you can be like a Klay Thompson type player, a Giannis Antetokounmpo type player, and all this stuff. And like the one thing I remember specifically from that is that if you chose to be a Giannis type player, then your archetype badge was called mismatch, which meant that if because he is a mismatch, so the basically what it meant was that if you have that badge on, and then if you're playing a player, if your defender is smaller than you, then it gives you an advantage to your post moves and your ability to back them down. And then if you're being defended by someone bigger than you, it gives an increase to your ball handling, passing, and shooting ability. So you can, what I mean? Basically just giving you a mismatch because that's kind of how Giannis is.
Yeah,
so.
And that is a good idea. The whole thing with the street basketball, I think that's only fun just because it's different from what the NBA 2K does. I think if they came out with the same thing next year, it'd get kind of stale. But yeah, I love the fact that they did the guard, wing, center thing because absolutely in the NBA right now, that's how it works. Nobody's like, oh, are you a power forward? They don't care. Like you'll see LeBron lining up at small forward, power forward, sometimes even center, and it's like one of the biggest things I really liked in 2K, and it's probably my thing for like the biggest improvement in 2K over the years, aside from my league adding expansion franchises, is the fact that you can set the player's reach when you're creating them.
The wingspan.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because it's absolutely ridiculous. So you would just every time you wanted like a 6'9" player, they're 6'9" in reach. That's not realistic. And like as far as they went with the reach, I think they should have gone even farther. I think it was like that you could increase it from like just a average wingspan of like the same as your height to like one that's like plus or minus 4 inches. I want to say. But
I think it's 4 or 5.
Yeah, but how I want them to set it up is just look at every NBA player that's ever played, or like however you want to look at it, like just players that you're sure this was their wingspan, and just say for every height, what is the most that we've ever seen, and like you get like a Manu Bol or something if you want to, or say like a Rudy Gobert 7'2", 7'9" wingspan, and then what's the lowest that you ever see, and that's your range, because that's realistic, and that's how it should be.
Also, another thing that I like, going off of what you're saying, I think that they should also do that with heights because like we've seen 7'7" players in the NBA, so why is it that my player can only be 7'3"?
Yeah.
And we've seen 5'3" Muggsy Bogues in the NBA, so why does my player have to be 5'7"?
Yeah.
Like like there should be a little bit more. I'm not saying that you should allow us to make an 8-foot NBA player, but Yao Ming, like Chinese NBA 2K fans might want to play like Yao Ming, and they're like, "What the heck? Yao Ming was 7'6", not 7'3". Like, what is this?"
Yeah, my thing with the height though is I want them to actually like skip around on it if there hasn't been a player who's like 5'4" or something, just so that it's realistic. Like I get that you could see someone in between, but like just show the fact that like it's not a normal one, like that it's an outlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you don't even have to go all the way up to 7'7" or 5'3". Like, but like I mean, you could add like 5'6" to 7'4", 7'5", because if you're, I mean, like You know, like it would just make you unique because not everyone's going to want to play with a 7'5" center who can barely move. But for the people who do want to, you shouldn't be able to take that away from them.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic point right there. That can barely move. One of the other things that I loved about how they integrated the wingspan was that it affected your attributes. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
could have been idiots and just had it be like, oh, you can make them have like 5 inches longer than their in height, and they're just a fantastic defender now, and it has no effect on their 3 point shooting. But they had like a
yeah,
noticeable decrease. Like if you gave them a longer reach, they were worse at shooting. A shorter reach, they were better at shooting. Like
yeah,
it mattered what you chose, and like it wasn't
yeah.
just a stylistic thing.
And just going off of other improvements that I think the game has made, I did enjoy the fact that this year that they allowed you to have a dual archetype system. But
Oh, I didn't see that.
so basically, you can choose two positions. Like your primary skill will be one thing, and your secondary skill will be one thing. So, for example, if you want to be a player like Kawhi Leonard, for example, this might not be a perfect, 1-to-1, but or Klay Thompson, he's perfect, basically. Like Klay Thompson, his primary skill, if you wanted to make a player like him, you could choose primary skill as sharpshooter, and then your secondary skill is lockdown defender. So that way, you can resemble players. But my
Oh, okay.
critique of that would be that that's still sort of unrealistic because like what would you do for LeBron? Like LeBron is
Yeah,
he's a
he's
point forward,
everything.
but he's also a slasher, but he can also play defense, but he can also shoot the three sometimes, and he can also play in the post sometimes.
Well, here, how
So
about this? How about like if you get like you they arrange it so you have like overall tiers, or like if you got to like a 90 or something, then you unlock a second attribute, or
yeah,
like you
yeah,
get to like
they
90.
should do stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like something like that would make sense. And then if you got to whatever LeBron's overall is, then you unlock like a third or something.
No, but even how they used to do it in like 2K16, where they would just give you the bars like playmaking ability, outside shooting, inside shooting, rebounding, defense, and whatever else it was. Like I think that was better than what it is now because you're not back then. Like all you had to do then was you were choosing what weakness you would have, and you would be good at everything else, rather than you can only choose two things that you're going to be good at, and then everything else you'll either be okay or bad at.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever you were doing your in my careers, would you like to choose where you were going to get drafted, or would you just let them choose for you?
Well, in the years where the draft actually, in the years in like so 2K16 and 2K17, where your college play and all that stuff affected where you would get drafted. I would typically just try and play well as well as possible in college, and then just go to whatever team drafted me. And then, because okay, here's another thing that's unrealistic. Just to add on,
Yeah.
um, every year in 2K, after your rookie season, you're a free agent.
Oh,
That's not
really?
real. Yeah, that's not realistic. Like as a rookie in the NBA, you have a team option, and then your team chooses whether to extend you. So they should factor stuff like that into a decision, and like they don't factor in like your player option, like they don't factor in like your team option, and basically you play a rookie season, you're a free agent, and you get to go wherever you want. Like that's
Oh,
not.
that's horrible. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I thought
So
it was
like
like a 3 or 4 year contract, but no, that's
no,
terrible.
no, yeah, and then obviously you can do some realistic things. Like you can request a trade, but like you shouldn't be able to be a rookie then be a free agent because like if you won Rookie of the Year, your team's not going to let you go sign somewhere else. Like they're going to activate your team option. So, um,
No, absolutely. They're bad.
yeah, and but basically the point that I was just making, what was I saying exactly?
That is
Oh,
outside
the
of the fact.
draft.
Yeah, the draft. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like, I mean, I would just try and get drafted relatively high, and then I would just play my first season, and then because I prefer realism, like I prefer realism, so I would just re-sign with the team that drafted me,
Yeah.
and then after my second contract, I would simulate through, maybe try and win a championship, and you know, then I would switch teams. But you know, that's basically how I played it. But then obviously, like sometimes I would just get kind of bored of playing the college game, so I would just kind of simulate through them, and I would get drafted really low and work my way up. So.
Yeah. And that makes sense too. But yeah, my biggest problem with my career was like whenever I would get traded, because I always felt really weird about that, and I guess this is how people feel in real life too, except they can't turn off the game if that happens. Is like just like building up your chemistry with all these players and getting used to the team and being like, okay, I'm used to playing with, and like for me, really I only did one career ever, and that was one where it was by my name, and like I was on the Raptors. It was that power forward one, and I had to turn it off once because I got traded from the Raptors after like 50 games into the season to the I forget what team. It was like the Nets or something, and like
Oh, really?
yeah, and like it was just a situation where like I didn't want to be traded, and like it's a weird thing because like you should be willing to go along with that, but for some reason like trades are just not something I'm willing to accept in my career, and
Yeah.
I'm not sure why that is.
Yeah, and they actually removed that from the game. Now you cannot be traded. You have to
Oh,
request a trade.
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so now, but I mean, that's like I understand that you didn't like it, but at the same time, like I feel like
That's
that's
realistic, yeah.
yeah, like you should be able to be traded if the team feels as though they could trade you. You know, like like it, you can't just be untouchable as a rookie. Like if you're having a horrible rookie season and someone wants to try and trade you, then they should be able to try and trade you. But I don't know. I really feel like 2K would just benefit from a lot more like realisticness and just
More
more depth
options.
to the story. Like like make it interesting so that people don't stop playing the game after like 3 months.
Yeah, and unfortunately, their business model is just we have to get them hooked enough that they're going to want to buy the game when it's released initially, and then they'll play it for like a month, and then the people that
Yep.
keep playing it, they're going to do the microtransactions. The people that don't, we don't need them anymore. And
Yeah. Exactly.
unfortunately, that's something we see a lot in business, especially today when it's just becoming more and more analytics driven, where they're like, okay, what's the most efficient way we can possibly do this? Is that they're going to do it in the easiest way possible and the one that makes the most sense monetarily, and it's very hard to fault companies for that,
Yeah.
especially when they're not EA.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like I mean, what are you going to do? The only way to combat it would be for enough people to actually buy the competition, but that's never going to happen.
Yeah, and like that's yeah, it seems like more and more today we're becoming monopolistic, but that's really a politics discussion.
Yeah.
Did you ever play any other sports games, or was it just 2K?
I played Madden a little bit, but not religiously. I got a little bit bored with 2K, so I bought Madden 17. I made a quarterback, um, and I did. I think all sports games sort of suffer from the same issue, where like there's no story. You just do the same thing. So like, I mean, I was a rookie quarterback. I won the Super Bowl with the Giants. Um, that was it. And then
Yeah,
like it's boring after that.
yeah, and like yeah, I completely agree with you there. It's just you're just playing the games at a certain point. I think the only one that can even survive on that is baseball, because this is baseball's infamous for the fact that when you're all the players they come up to hit for like yeah, obviously if you're hitting, if you're pitching it's a different story, but you come up to hit for like a minute or two and then you go sit on the bench for an hour. But
Yeah,
I think that saves it as a video game because like you can get through games in like 5 to 10 minutes, and that's really good for it. So like
yeah,
you can be through a whole season in a day if you want to. But
yeah.
and like
I,
that. Sorry, you were saying.
just basically like the other thing that I dislike is like NBA like 2K games like they take so long to get through if you want
Yes,
to actually
it's
like
like an hour and
I
a half. Yeah.
yeah like I want a realistic score to the end of the game. Like I get it, you can turn it to 6 minute quarters, but I don't want to play 6 minute quarters because the final score of the game will be like 60 to 50,
Dude, I'm
and
the
that just
same
looks
way.
like yeah like
12 minutes all the way.
yeah, so I played like typically somewhere between 10 to 12 minute quarters, just so this like, the score actually looks realistic because that's what I prefer. But I mean, honestly, like I just feel like they need to add really actually realistic elements. Like they need to like if your player on your team gets injured, that should be like a focus. Like that should be important. Your player should be susceptible to getting injured, and then you have to like work back from it. Like you should be able to get traded, or like your team can sign a player that you don't like, or you should have rivalries with certain teams,
Or
just
certain
actual
players.
elements that are actually in the NBA.
Yeah.
Like if I'm on the Celtics and like or like the Lakers and Nuggets have a rivalry right now, right? So if I join the Lakers and I'm a member of their young core, then like I should have
I
a
didn't know
disdain
that.
and want to play against the Nuggets really well because they have a rivalry. But all that stuff is just sort of ignored.
I didn't know they had a rivalry. When did that happen?
Oh, basically Jamal Murray, he dribbled around Lonzo Ball at the end of a game when they were up, and then the Lakers thought it was disrespectful, so they all started like getting into a fight with him. So
That.
they don't really like each other. And then Luke Walton called Jamal Murray disrespectful, and then Lonzo Ball said that him dribbling around him was a punk move. So
Yeah, yeah, punk move.
yeah, yeah, Jamal Murray versus Lonzo Ball,
Yeah,
point guard matchup of the future.
I'll screw the Lakers. Hopefully they stay tanking for the next 5 years. I
Unless they get
certainly,
LeBron this offseason.
They better not. I'm
I
literally crossing my
I
fingers.
really hope
I doubt they're going to get him, but I mean, you never know.
I don't know. I don't know. DeMarcus Cousins and Paul George, both free agents.
Yeah, they'll probably stay with their teams, but I'm more.
Paul George, I'm not sure. Depending on how the Thunder fall out, but DeMarcus Cousins, I think will stay.
Yeah, like I think the biggest thing is that Sam Presti needs to say, okay, we're going for a new free agent instead of Carmelo Anthony, but I think they're going to be stuck with his contract just like the Knicks were. Like,
Hey, yeah,
doesn't it expire after next year?
yeah. They signed. I think the Knicks signed him forever.
Oh, really?
No, no, no. They signed him to a 5-year deal. They signed him in 2014 to a 5-year deal. So yeah,
Oh,
next season will be done.
2014. Okay, yeah, yeah. So they,
I think so. I think it was a 5-year deal. I'm not sure
I
though.
that sounds right. Yeah, and obviously it had the infamous no trade clause, which
Which
he was super petty about. Right after Phil Jackson got fired, he yeah he, immediately requested a trade. But
yeah, I mean, like it's weird because I mean, when you think about the three players in the NBA who have a no trade clause, it's LeBron, Dirk, and Melo. Like, why does Melo have one?
yeah, and like I mean Dirk didn't even need one. There was no way he would ever get traded. But yeah,
Yeah, and then, I mean, and then like Kevin Garnett had one with the Wolves, and then Tim Duncan had one with the Spurs, but those were similar situations.
yeah, like it's just a franchise
LeBron is
player.
the only one that really matters. Like LeBron is the only one who really should have one. I feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, because like it's a situation where you could realistically trade him, even though you would never be able to find an equitable amount to get back.
I'm surprised Steph Curry and James Harden don't have no trade clauses in their new deals.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I think the GMs would have just said we're not going to give you the supermax if you do that. Even though they wouldn't realistically trade him, but still, like
Yeah, I feel like maybe Kawhi might get a no trade clause.
if he stays, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like Greg Popovich would be willing to give him that if he gave it to Tim Duncan.
yeah. So I think that about wraps up the whole video game discussion. Actually, one more thing. So, how accurate do you think 2K games are at not simulating, as in like actually simming the games, but like just watching the games on there? How accurate do you think they are to real life?
They are not. They are not accurate
Yeah,
because if I'm in my career, right, or just you can do this in any game, no matter what the game mode is. If you play the game, right, and like there is no way that you can consistently go through one player and get one player like 70 shots in a game. Like that's
yeah. They'll
ridiculous.
just like quadruple team them or something.
Like basically, if like in like the way that I play, right, like I just keep like if I call for the ball, they give it to me no matter what. That should not be a thing, especially like so right now in NBA 2K18, I'm on the Cavaliers, right. I have LeBron James on my team, but for some reason I'm running the offense. Like that's unrealistic,
Yeah,
and just I mean I don't really like that either. It's like weird how you have to like to make the game realistic, you have to do things to make it realistic. Like you have to go to a really bad team, and then you have to like pass when you feel like you shouldn't run the offense, and then like you have to set the quarter length, and you have to, you know, you basically have to accommodate to make it realistic and all this stuff. And I don't know, it's just that should be done for you.
yeah. I absolutely agree with that. How are you feeling about this top five MVP candidates list they're putting up?
Dame at 2 is a little bit suspicious.
Kyrie Irving at the three is a little bit suspicious.
Oh, that's much more. Yeah, it should be James Harden, then LeBron, then Anthony Davis, and then
Yeah.
after that, it should probably be Kevin Durant.
Yeah, yeah, and not Steph, just because Steph's been out with a bunch of injuries this year.
Yeah, and then fifth, maybe Damian Lillard could be fifth. That's fine.
No, I say Chris Paul fifth. Actually, I think you got to give
Oh,
him some credit too.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like he probably wouldn't get it just because he.
No, he wouldn't, but I think that he deserves a
Or
lot of
honestly, I
credit.
mean, even prior to the injury, I low key feel like Jimmy Butler just because of fourth seed in the West prior
Yeah,
to his injury.
but like yeah, prior, yeah,
yeah, yeah, that was a shame.
yeah. Chris Paul always amazes me with the fact that he leads all players in NBA history in win shares per 48 minutes. Like he
Yeah,
beats out Michael Jordan, he beats out Wilt. Like he literally is the best in the NBA history at that, which is
yeah,
unbelievable because it's not like he's some bench player doing that. He averages like 30 minutes a game. I don't know what he's averaging with the Rockets, but yeah, like he's a solid starter and he's doing this incredible thing that nobody gives him credit for. And I think that just
yeah.
immediately makes him the best player to never win an NBA championship.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I would take him over Steve Nash, Charles Barkley,
Karl
um,
Malone.
Karl Malone, John Stockton. Yeah, I mean, okay, Karl Malone. I discount a lot of what Karl Malone did simply because John Stockton fed him the ball so
Yeah,
much. Um,
absolutely.
and John Stockton, on that same note, he was a limited player. Like he was a good point guard, but he wasn't much of a scorer. And even though he's all time in steals, he really wasn't much of a defender because steals doesn't mean you're a good defender. It just
Yeah.
means that you can get in the passing lane. So, um, yeah, this Chris Paul. I think I would agree with that. He's probably the best player to ever won a championship.
Yeah, let's hope he can get one, and if not, well, yeah, let's just hope he gets one. There's no honor in being the best at that.
He should. Yeah, I mean, if they blow out this year, then he really should go to a team with LeBron and just try and get that done.
Yeah, actually, that's a fantastic point because that's something we haven't really talked about with this whole LeBron sweepstakes. But if he does leave this year, I think he is very likely to go to a team with LeBron because that's something they always talked about as going on the same
Yeah,
team with each
but
other.
at the same time, I don't think they should do the whole banana boat
No, no,
trade.
no, no, no. Yeah, he already
Because,
had
well,
his.
honestly, like having Dwayne Wade on the bench, I think is fine, but
Yeah,
don't get Carmelo.
no,
Don't get Carmelo.
avoid him at all costs. It's like
Yeah,
trying to
Carmelo
bring.
is the black hole of NBA success now. He is not helpful. He's not productive to winning. Dwayne Wade on the bench is fine because I feel like he can definitely go off and maybe help you win a playoff game. So, having Dwayne Wade on the bench just for
Yeah,
experience, because it would be fun. Like, honestly, it would just be fun for everyone. Like, they'd have a good time. That's fine because he can still probably produce about 10, 11 points per game off the bench. But Chris Paul and LeBron with some shooters, deadly. That'd be
yeah,
lovely.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Ideally, the team that I would build around LeBron this coming free agency, if at all possible, would be Chris Paul, Paul George, and LeBron to the Pelicans, and then you'd have Chris Paul, Paul
The
George,
Pelican,
LeBron.
I would love to see that so much. I was amazed that the Pelicans weren't more of a player in the free agent sweepstakes for Chris Paul. I mean,
Yeah, that would have been perfect because he would have been able to finish his career where, or not finish, but he would be able to continue playing where he started his career, and he would get two amazing big men who
yeah,
would thrive with him.
like it was the perfect situation. It was going back to where he started. I mean, maybe he just wasn't close with them originally, but he was with for like a good 8 years. It wasn't like
Yeah, I know. He went to the Clippers. He was drafted in what
2005,
2005.
yes,
Five,
something
yeah.
like that. He's been around for
Yeah,
a while.
2005, and then he was traded, I think, in like 2011 or 2012. So yeah, he was there for a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess he wanted the money or something. The Pelicans probably didn't have a lot more they could spend.
Yeah, yeah, because at the time they were still really new and stuff. But now, I mean, now they're a legit franchise. I mean, they're
No,
still.
no, I mean just like last year.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, no, still yeah. I mean, they're. I think it's a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're a small market team. So and also the Clippers would have to agree to it too because it was a sign and trade for Chris Paul. They traded Patrick Beverly, Lou Williams, Sam Decker, and a draft pick for Chris Paul.
Yeah, actually, how did you feel about that Chris Paul veto that by David Stern when he was going to go to the Lakers?
I mean, a lot of people think that it was dumb, but I mean, like, it was unfair. But at the time, I don't know. I'm not sure how many NBA people like. A lot of people talk about it, but I'm not sure they know the whole story. The New Orleans Pelicans or Hornets, as they were at the time, that team was owned by the NBA,
Yes.
so they had the power to cancel that trade, just like any owner has the power to veto a trade. Just like I remember, just this past summer when Cleveland was about to trade Kyrie Irving to the Celtics, when they found out that Isaiah Thomas's hip was injured, they held off on it and they wanted more assets. So any owner of a team has the power to do that. So the NBA had the power to do that just because they probably felt like it would completely disrupt the balance of the NBA. So a lot of people say things like, "Oh, like they vetoed the Chris Paul trade, but why did they let KD go to the Warriors? Why did they let LeBron go to the Heat? Why did they let why they let Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett go to the Celtics and all that stuff?" But those situations are all completely different because the NBA actually owned a team that was involved in the trade. So I disliked it because I thought Chris Paul, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol could have been very good, but I feel like at the same time I'm a little bit grateful for it because that team probably would have been contending throughout 2012, 2013, because Kobe Bryant was still playing at a high level, and that probably would have given the Spurs some trouble and the Heat some trouble. So I'm glad with the fact that Tim Duncan has 5 championships, Kawhi has 1, and LeBron has 3. So those things would probably all be different if that trade had happened. So in hindsight, it's kind of to me, it's kind of fine that it never happened.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it would have changed too much, to be honest. Like, if you
Yeah,
remember, like in the 20, Was it 2011, 2012 free agency?
2011. I feel like it might have changed the Dallas series. I'm not sure if that happened, if this was before or after that, but
I feel like it was after. Oh,
I'm not sure if it was 2010, 2011, or 2011, 2012. But essentially, like it probably just would have shaken up the West. But at the end of the day, maybe you're right. I
yeah,
mean,
and like
maybe
the
it
Lakers were
wouldn't
on a
have done.
downturn at that point. Like it was going to be 2 years later that Kobe Bryant was going to get injured, and Paul Gasol was like falling off massively at that point, and
Yeah,
like
he's not the same player. So
yeah, like they were just competing for like 8 seeds at that point. So I don't think it would have made them championship contenders by any means, but it could have
yeah,
been
I mean,
interesting
depending
to
on who they
see.
put around him, but still, yeah.
Yeah, and like seriously, if there was any team that could happen to, let it be the Lakers. Like, oh no, let me let's dry off your tears with your 17 NBA championships and your
Yeah,
like it's just
it's
I
kind
have
of like
no
it's like a fatigue thing. Like I mean, seeing the Lakers be like the Lakers, like it's not fair that all these other NBA teams have to suck for so long, but the Lakers get to be so good all the time. So the
oh yeah
Lakers should have some years of some struggle, just to keep it fair.
yeah I mean just screw the Lakers and the Celtics, but
Yeah, honestly, Timberwolves, Pelicans, Suns for the future.
not the Suns. And that's going back to what we talked about last week, which was what sports teams should you root for? It's impossible to like a sports team that has a crappy owner, and the Suns do not
Yeah,
have a good owner in Robert Sarver.
yeah. Also, I mean, the Suns also like I know that now they kind of seems like they're one of the worst teams in the NBA, but the Suns are actually the fourth most winning franchise in terms of games in NBA history.
Yeah, I really. At
Yeah,
what point was
it's
this?
something like that. It's like Lakers, Celtics, Spurs, and then them.
Uh
Their win percentage is among the highest
oh,
all time.
winning percentage. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I was thinking games play. I was gonna say they're not that old, but yeah,
yeah. No, games played, no, winning percentage.
yeah.
I think they're fourth all time.
Yeah, and that's a good
Because
point
this,
because didn't they
yeah,
come around in like I want to say the 80s or something? So like that you just go straight into the Charles Barkley years and then you have the
yeah,
Steve
yeah.
Nash. Yeah.
Charles Barkley, Amari Stoudemire, Steve Nash, all those play like yeah, like they had, and then even I feel like I'm missing one player, but still, regardless,
Yeah, I can't think of anyone we're missing, but maybe there's like 70s or something.
yeah,
But yeah, if you just go straight, if you don't have those lean years like the Lakers did, and like in between their 50s and 60s teams, or like the bad Celtics teams, like yeah, you're gonna have a great winning percentage.
yep, that is true.
Yeah, well, let's cross our fingers that the Spurs can move up on that list even further.
Yeah, I hope the Spurs stay relevant for a long time. I love the Spurs.
Yeah, I love Greg Popovich. Like,
He's brilliant. He's one of the best minds in the NBA. Skip Bayless. He seems to think that Greg Popovich is taking a step back and that he's not as good as a coach as he used to be.
yeah, and someone that never gets enough credit in this, once again, going back to what we talked about last week, is just the great GMs in the league that don't get any credit for what they do. R.C. Buford has
Yeah,
been,
he's brilliant. He
he's
does so much for their
literally the
franchise.
best at finding players in the league. Better than Masai Ujiri. He always finds these amazing guys that like nobody even talks about. Like David Bertans, nobody knew about. Kyle Anderson, Jonathan Simmons, that incredible trade for Kawhi because he was originally on the Pacers.
Yeah, George Hill, straight up.
Yeah, like he's just always finding these awesome players
Yeah,
that like nobody knows about.
yeah. Oh, one moment, Ryan.
Yeah,
I'm gonna mute the mic for a second. I gotta head downstairs for a second.
yeah, sure thing. So, where am I gonna take this, you guys? Let's see. I was gonna ask about what do you thought about college players and if they should be making money under the current NBA system, and then if he thought college players should be making money under our new system where like the NBA draft has gotten rid of and like a free agency thing is going on. Like just how I'm thinking about it, it's a weird issue because if college becomes voluntary and like you're not doing a one and done rule thing, that's kind of weird because maybe you shouldn't be making money, but there's still the situation where you're not really able to, like, you're still providing a system to the NCAA, so maybe you should be getting reparations for it, and that's something that I'm surprised isn't talked about a little more during this NCAA tournament. I suppose it's just too much romanticism going on about it. But just like the billions of dollars, and I mean literally billions of dollars that brings in for NCAA programs, and the fact that like none of that goes to the players. And I don't want to hear criticism saying that the NCAA needs that money to support other programs. Like the leagues usually do like a 50-50 split. So, oh no, are you not gonna? If we take half your money away, are you really gonna crumble? And is like some D1 lacrosse program not gonna be able to function anymore? Like, I'm not particularly concerned about that. But yeah, Rod and I have been watching this Rockets Timberwolves game this entire time. We're trying to keep up that theme of watching an NBA game while we're doing the podcast. Kind of think it's a, well, I kind of think that it's a fun thing to do. This has probably been the biggest blowout that we watched so far. The Nets 76ers was a pretty big one too, but just in terms of what was expected, I thought we were going to get a better performance out of the Timberwolves. Their defense is just shot without Jimmy Butler, and unfortunately, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Just the 1 and 2 seeds in the West are so separated from the 3 through 10 seeds, and it just shows how obvious it is that the Western Conference is final is going to be the Rockets Warriors. Like, barring an incredible Spurs turnaround, which I don't think we can hope for at this point, because who knows what's going on with the Kawhi thing. It's going to be them. And for anyone that complains and says that, oh, why should we care about the playoffs? Because we all know who's going to be there in the finals. That's not the point. The point that is we have really intriguing matchups here, and we have a lot of potential that's coming up in the wings. Like the Portland Trailblazers have been a really interesting team this year, and they've been really consistent with it, and like they're for like the past 30 games or so, they've been really good. It isn't like it's just one big streak and then they've been a whole lot of nothing like some other teams in the past. But yeah, it seems like we got some great matchups. Like I would love to see like a Pelicans Trailblazers game and just see Anthony Davis trying to run down Yusuf Nurkic. That'd be really fun. And yeah, even teams that aren't making the playoffs right now, like the Nuggets, that's a team that really could be great if they had a little more out of Paul Millsap. Oh Jesus, they just got in a fight in the Rockets Timberwolves game. That's pretty intense. Who's this guy with the Chinese hairdo? That's kind of weird. Oh, they're bringing. You know it's bad when they're bringing on security officials to push away the players from the actual stadium, arena, whatever. But yeah, it looked like Orchie Gang got a little feisty there. I was actually looking at before this some of the biggest NBA, not NBA, just basketball arenas in the entire world, and it was really interesting looking at some of the ones that are above. Oh, I'm looking at the replay. And it looked like he just poked the guy and he fell over. That was like a soccer level flop. Usually I don't see those when I'm reffing, but apparently they happen. But yeah, I was looking at some of the biggest stadiums by capacity, like obviously the ones that are bigger than 20,000, because in the NBA you obviously have a United Center that's like 20,000, but just looking at some of the much bigger ones, like the one in the Philippines that's like 50,000 people, that's ridiculous. But yeah, you guys have to look up some of those pictures because it's really interesting to see how different some stadiums are designed from the ones that we're accustomed to in the NBA. And it sounds like our NBA correspondent is back.
Hello.
Yeah. So, did we wrap up that previous point?
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay, great. Then I can ask you a question that I gave the listeners. Ooh, did you see this fight that broke out?
Yeah, I'm watching it right
I
now.
was talking about it. It looks like literally Gorgie Dang just poked the guy and he did like a soccer style flop on the ground.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, he barely touched him, and I was saying, you know, it's serious when the arena security officials come over.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, that obviously NBA fights. What are you gonna do? But so I was talking to them about whether you think that college players should be getting paid under the current NBA system, and then should college players be getting paid under our idealized NBA?
Well, I mean, I think that college players first and foremost.
And I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
Yeah, I think college players first and foremost. I think they should definitely be paid, but I feel like because I mean, at the end of the day, all these college players, only about 1 or 2% of them end up playing in the NBA. So, for some of them, they're playing 4 years in college and they end up not going to the NBA. They just wasted. I don't want to say wasted, but it's extremely difficult to be a student athlete where you're actually devoted to all of your studies and um, you know, playing at a high level for college basketball. So you're not able to get the proper education that 4 years in college would give to an average person. So they should definitely be paid just, to have something to fall back on when they're coming out of college and their basketball career is over, because obviously not all of them are going to make it to the pros. But in the way that they should be paid, I feel like they should honestly just be paid by the NCAA's revenue system. Um, I'm not exactly sure how would you work out salaries because
Yeah,
obviously
that would be weird.
yeah, but it'd be weird. But I feel like all players on the team should end up be paid. I think the biggest challenge with it is, would you pay all the players equal salaries or not? Because obviously some players are going to be better than other players, but at the same time, it's difficult to rank them, and that would sort of take away from college basketball, because college basketball is all about love of the game, and like they're not paid; they're playing it because they like the game. So I don't know. It'd be an interesting system to have to work out how they'd get paid, but whatever it would be, they should definitely get paid.
Yeah, and like,
or they could just do it by boosters who do it for specific players, because then specific players can't get mad about salaries if there are people who are giving them money, boosters or whatever it may be.
yeah, like how and the boosters thing is interesting. I'll get back to you on that because I don't completely understand how that would work. But yeah, like right now, it seems pretty obvious that they should just have it be okay. How much money does the school bring in from the production of its basketball team or whatever, like, and just go by like, okay, how much is it getting from its TV contract or what, or the conference money, and then just divvy that up 50-50 to 50 to the players and then 50 to the university coach, whatever, because that's how any major sports league handles it. But with how to divvy it up to the actual players, my proposal would be to divvy it up based on the minutes played in a game.
Oh, yeah, that's wise.
Yeah, and like anyone who argues that that would incentivize the coach to play his players literally every minute, that wouldn't happen because the coach is trying to win the game and like he's trying to make sure that the players are rested. It's not like the players are going to leave for another team where they'd be making less money because there's less total pot to go around.
Yeah, but I feel like at the same time, I feel like there should be a starting salary, because then for the players,
have like a minimum salary, yes.
Yeah, because that way the players who have 0 minutes still get paid, and then no, that'd be wise, because that way players can sort of work for it too. Because the harder you work, the more minutes you're going to get. So then you're sort of working for your money. Yeah, that'd be a good way to do it.
And great point on the minimum salary. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Because I mean, obviously, then you have a bunch of guys playing 0 minutes for no reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure how much they should get paid, but I mean,
and I'll
whatever it may be.
Yeah, and I'll look up how much money like individual college basketball programs are bringing in from their teams, and like see how that would compare to like other ones.
And then you can add up the minutes played by all the players and then divide it amongst that, and then divide the
But I'll do that calculation in a minute. But like, how does the boosters system work? Is that literally just endorsements, or is that agents?
I think it's like I'm not exactly sure either, because I don't follow many college sports, but I feel like it's like there are certain like people and like like super fans and stuff will give money to the school, like in order to help the athletic programs. So people like that could, the money given from those boosters to the program could be used to give to the players, because most programs really don't need that much money to do more stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Like, what do they do with all the money that they generate from ticket sales and merchandise and TV deals and all? So basically, any extra money that's given from boosters to the program, I feel like could be used to pay the players. That's what I meant by that. But in terms of how it works exactly, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, that'd be good. And like the most important thing is just to eliminate this black market system where every team is like paying the players to like even every college team is paying the players to like give them like a free meal or like just like this sketchy under the table stuff where like agents are paying players so that they're gonna be with the agency when they're a pro, and like just get rid of that. Like you make it so the player isn't going to be down for getting like $100 so that they're going to be able to eat that night. Like that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. You should hire an agent when you declare for the draft. Like you should meet with agents who you feel like are going to represent you very well.
Yeah, but like even then it's too late. But and yeah,
Yeah,
just getting some kind of money pool where that's not something that they have to think about is yeah.
yeah. You watching this Timberwolves game? It got close all of a sudden.
Yeah, I
9 point
know.
game.
That's I'm not gonna say it's the curse of Chris Paul because like I'm so used to seeing those Clippers games where the bench would just fall apart.
Yeah,
But yeah, like I have no clue if that's something that happens with the Rockets.
Derrick Rose is playing pretty well.
He is. I've been paying attention to him, and he's probably playing the best on defense on the entire team.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. This is a little side note from what we were just talking about, but I think it's cool to see him and Jimmy Butler back together. They don't seem that close, but I feel like they have like a mutual respect or something
Was Jimmy Butler even on the? Oh, well, yeah,
in the
because
Bulls. They were on
Derrick
the
Rose
Bulls.
was there for a while. I was for some reason thinking that he wasn't. But when did Jimmy Butler get there? Was he there that season? Derrick Rose went off.
Jimmy Butler arrived after Derrick Rose won the MVP. It was the same summer
Oh, okay.
because Derrick Rose was given the MVP in 2011, and Jimmy Butler signed with the or he didn't sign. He was drafted by the Bulls in 2011.
Okay, gotcha.
So basically, Jimmy Butler's first season was the season Derrick Rose tore his ACL. So yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
the
So
lockout season. The lockout season was Jimmy Butler's first year.
okay. So, just based on what I'm looking at right now, I'm seeing payout figures that are way too low. I'm seeing like stuff like last year Gonzaga, being the top one, and it only being 8.5 million for the entire year, which does not sound like enough, but because literally
Oh well, how many players are on a college roster?
like 12. But just to put that in perspective, like there are some coaches that make that much, so that's not realistic.
Oh, okay, yeah. Your coach would have to take a pay cut for all the
Oh,
players to
Jesus
get.
Christ. James Harden hurt his hand.
Yeah, is he okay? Is he still on the court?
He's still holding it.
Let's see. If he stays on the court, it shouldn't be a problem. Oh
Yeah.
no. Oh, he's hurt.
Oh, God. This is not a good time in the NBA season to have that happen.
Hopefully, it's not serious.
Yeah, this was something
Oh, but he started holding it after.
oh, wait, he
Maybe.
did? Oh,
Yeah.
uh,
Let's see.
yeah, and this was something I talked about in one of our first podcasts was that James Harden's one of these at-risk players who plays so many minutes, and like he's always like top in the league in minutes and plays the most games, so
Yeah, James Harden, Karl Anthony Towns, Jimmy Butler, Andrew Wiggins, LeBron James, all those players are just one wrong step away from a bad injury.
yeah, no kidding with wrong step.
Yeah, and like I mean, that's the one thing I will credit the Warriors for a lot is that they don't put their players in situations like that. They
Yeah.
don't rely on anyone playing that many minutes.
Yeah,
And even the Thunder too. Russell Westbrook last year he averaged a triple double, but he only played 34 minutes a game.
oh, really? I thought he was averaging like 36.
No, he only averaged 34 minutes a game last year, which that's actually pretty impressive to me. That you're on the you're not playing for 14 minutes a game, but you still average a triple double. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay, so I found another statistic, and that's is that lower? No, that's higher. So I found another statistic by here. Let me cite them because that's what Miss Haley would like me to do. By
Yeah,
Zax.com.
yeah,
That's not sketchy at all. That they make about 20 million a year, so maybe that's like conference payout plus endorsements.
yeah.
So yeah,
I don't know. Whatever the system is, they need to work something. And honestly, even if it doesn't even have to be ridiculous amounts of money. Like because like some of the players who are playing in college really don't like. They don't even need to be paid like that much. Like they just want enough money to like help their families or like just do something like just to have some money. Like
yeah,
you could even pay like some players like I don't know like 60,000 $70,000 a year and they'd be fine.
yeah. I'm running the calculation right now for what it would look like for like the average star in college basketball. Uh,
Yeah, and then they like a player's ability to go to a school. I feel like that should be able to be bought. Like I remember there was like an outcry because apparently DeAndre Ayton only went to Arizona because someone paid him $100,000 to do so. But
yes,
like,
yeah, I saw that.
why is that a problem? Like that, who cares? Like, so if someone paid him $100,000 to do that, then that's fine.
Yeah.
Like whatever.
Okay, so like one of the if you had like a top five player in the entire NCAA and he's playing for like a top 15 program, so like a Duke, a Kentucky, a Michigan State, they would make, based on my system, if they were playing 32 minutes per game, out of like a 40-minute game, and they play every game in the season, which is pretty realistic. They would make is that million? Yeah, 1.6 million that season.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's like
that's realistic.
Like a veteran. That's like a veteran minimum in the NBA. Yeah.
So
it's less than a veteran minimum in the NBA.
Oh, isn't? I thought the veteran.
I think the veteran minimum is like, or I feel like it's 2.3 million.
I'll check.
I feel like that's what it was for Derrick Rose when he signed.
Yeah. Let's see. Veteran.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's 1.4 million. Oh wait. No, I think it depends because David West's was 1.4 million, but Derrick Rose's was. Maybe it depends.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, it's about that. But yeah, I'm like that's a fantastic number. Like that's about where it should be probably. And yeah, like to get the veteran minimum and like just get something. Like that's a good amount. And I don't know what we'd make the actual.
Yeah, Derrick
minimum.
Rose was for 2.1 million. So.
Yeah. And I don't know what we'd make the actual minimum. Maybe like 50,000 or something. But just so like you're making an actual salary for the fact that you're putting in your life on, not your life, your body on the line, and you're providing an actual service that not everybody can do. Like that's how these things should work. Like it should, if you're doing something that the average person can't do, you should be making money for it.
Also, like the worst thing to me is like what if a player like Anthony Davis, when he was at Kentucky, like what if he got injured and he never made it to the NBA?
Oh,
like,
no.
Exactly. Like, you know, like
a Kevin Ware situation.
Yeah, like he'd have nothing. Like Anthony Davis would literally be like, he would not have much if he wasn't playing. Like, well, I mean, I don't know his situation or whatever, but like I'm assuming his life would be nothing like it is now if he wasn't in the NBA. So.
Yeah, you gotta think it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah, something I actually saw is apparently Karl Anthony Towns has Twitch that he live streams on.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. It wasn't particularly interesting because he was doing that stupid PUBG game that I don't understand why people like watching, but yeah. Because like it just seems like an incredibly boring game. Like nothing's ever happening, and like it's just you basically camp for like 15 minutes and then you eventually kill somebody. Like so, it's the worst aspect of first-person shooters. But
well, which game are you talking about?
PlayerUnknown Battleground or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not sure what that is.
Yeah, I barely know what it is either. It's just because I run into it on Twitch whenever I like once a month and check out what's going on Twitch.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently he started a YouTube channel too, and that goes into my question. Do you think that players right now should be leveraging social media? Not social media. They're doing that enough. Like modern media more, and like they should really try and be building their own brands in the same way that like UFC fighters are making careers out of being commentators while they are fighters as well.
I don't have a problem with it because I feel like any NBA player should be able to do whatever they want. But at the same time, I don't think they should go so far out in doing stuff like that that it affects their career. I in a perfect world, every NBA player's ideal goal would be to be the best player possible for themselves, given their skill level. But I feel like at the end of the day, the more talented players like Karl Anthony Towns, I feel like a player like him, because he's so talented and knows that he can be probably a top center in the NBA, will continue to do so. So for a player like him, I don't really see it as an issue. But maybe for like a lesser star in the NBA who, like let's just pick a random guy off the team, like Joe Ingles, right? Like I don't think Joe Ingles should be spending all of his time like trying to build up a brand when he could be doing more to improve as an NBA player. So.
Yeah, definitely, and I would like to see at least more people trying to do something like it, but it is a lot of time out of your day, and like it's debatable how much of an effect it would really have beyond what they're currently doing with like Twitter and all the social medias.
Yeah, I mean, you're right too. I mean, a lot of players, basically, like, I don't think a player should ever be more focused on making money outside of the game, like in terms of having a brand and like having followers and like social media or anything like that. Basically, like because like Damian Lillard, for example, like he is a rapper on the side, like he released an album, but like that's fine because obviously everyone's seeing this season that has absolutely nothing to do with how well he's been playing. So
yeah.
Oh wow, Derrick Rose just had a really good defensive play on Chris Paul.
Yeah, you did. This game is still really close. It'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Derrick Rose needs to get involved. I like what Derrick Rose is doing though. I feel like he's getting more involved on defense to compensate for what he can't do on offense anymore, which I really appreciate that actually.
Yeah,
Oh, that was pretty nice.
yeah. How about that? And I'm not gonna say I didn't give him enough credit, but yeah, like because I frankly didn't think he was gonna be doing this kind of stuff. But yeah, if he plays like this every game, you can give him some credit here. But yeah,
It's funny
we'll
because we
see.
were just talking about him. Yeah, 12 points and some really good defense. That is not bad.
Yeah.
It's sad that that's the standard now, though.
Yeah, he could have been so much better, but I mean, injuries happen.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it's cool that because he's still a really athletic player, so he can obviously play some defense.
Yeah. Okay, so I've never actually asked you this. Do you have any questions for like how I feel about something in the NBA? Because like I'm always asking you about stuff.
Yeah, let me. I can. I'm sure I can think off the top of my head. So, do you think that they're well, basically, are you a fan of the fact that the game is so oriented towards everybody shooting threes, or do you wish that there was more of an emphasis on players like Boogie Cousins, Anthony Davis, DeAndre Jordan, and Andre Drummond, Rudy Gobert? Like, do you hope for like because I know in this upcoming NBA draft you have players like Michael Porter Jr., DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley, like all these young players who are going to come into the NBA next season are they're more big men. There are less guards this year. Do you hope for an emphasis like back on like inside play and like post play and just I guess scoring inside, or do you kind of like how it is now where it's more finesse play and more 3 point shooting and jump shooting?
Yeah, so like which I stylistically more prefer. Uh, hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Hmm. I feel like for the most part, it's just I like whatever works, and I like to know that coaches are always doing the smartest and most efficient thing, like following like baseball and like seeing front offices that like either don't buy into analytics or like no, we're gonna get pitchers that pitch to contact instead of pitchers that like do strikeouts. I mean, like, even if I liked pitchers that pitch to contact or something, I would just say, but they should be doing this other thing. They're not being smart about how they're doing it. So, like, that's how I feel about it. But I think for it is
Oh
interesting.
wow, sorry, Derrick Rose, really nice play again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Keep going.
I just saw that too. Wow,
Yeah,
this game is
keep
gonna be
going.
real close. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think for the biggest thing right now is just a counterculture thing, and one of my favorite things to see isn't post play. Like I'm not crazy about post play, but I love seeing blocks. So like that's really what I like seeing about my out of my big men, and like I'm not crazy about 3 point shooting, but like I'm also surprisingly not crazy about watching the NBA. I just love the system that it is.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Um, I prefer playoff basketball myself.
Yeah,
I
me
like
too.
watching the slower pace. Yeah, I mean,
Like I like
I
slower
don't.
pace. I'm just not sure what aspects I like.
Okay, I like watching post fades, like post fadeaways, like Dirk Nowitzki, LaMarcus Aldridge, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron James. Like I like that, but I don't like just pushing your shoulder into someone's chest all the way
Yeah,
and
no.
just get like that's a little bit boring to watch. I do think the NBA now with the way the 3 point shooting and stuff is, I do think it's more exciting to watch just because it goes at a faster pace and like it's like, oh, like this trip down, are they going to the rim? Are they going to shoot a three? Like, despite any criticisms of Steph Curry is one of the most fun players to watch in the
Oh
NBA. Like
yeah.
he's very like just the way that he can handle the ball, dribble the ball, the way he shoots the ball, the way he can make layups, floaters, like all that stuff. So yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I don't really have a preference for the inside game per se, but I would love to see more of an emphasis on defense because it feels
Yeah,
like so
yeah.
many teams now
Yeah.
just try. Everyone
You
just
stole it right
tries
from
so
me.
much to play offense. Like last year with the Rockets, um, they just didn't play deep. Like they didn't care about defense. Now it's cool because they actually care about it. But like I agree with you. Like shot blocking is one of the more exciting aspects of the NBA, and even like steals and someone going coast to coast to try and get to the rim is much more exciting than just not than taking defensive plays off. So
Yeah.
I wish that there was a little bit more balance, but at the same time, I wouldn't go for any strict change to the NBA.
Yeah, and you literally stole it right out of not literally. You stole it right out of my mouth. I was just about to say I think the thing that I don't like about the 3 point shooting focus is that it takes away from defense, and defense is always the thing that I prefer the most. And when
Yeah,
watching a game, like I don't like defense to the because you can't play offense. That's not fun. But I love teams like the Jazz and the Spurs where they or like the Grizzlies where I'm not crazy about them slowing it down, but like that they can take control of a game and like they can lock down players. And I
yeah,
think that ultimately comes from the fact that whenever I play sports, I'm not an offense player. I'm always the defensive player that like tries to shut down some other guy or like I think it's just something that I relate to more than like these
yeah.
crazy offensive teams. And like I'm watching like the Rockets and like they're just flinging the ball over the court, and I'm like, what is even going on here?
Yeah, and also like I think it's pretty fair to say that offense comes from defense, but
Yeah,
defense doesn't come from offense. So
yeah,
I feel like once you have a good defense, like everything else works out. Like uh, for example, like I didn't know this about the Cleveland Cavaliers, but in 2016 when they won the championship, their defensive rating was like 98 points per game, which is amazing.
yeah. They were
And
unbelievable.
like obviously you could tell like that season for them was great. Like they won 57 games and they won the championship. They had a really dominant Eastern Conference, like so that kind of thing is just yeah, I agree. I think there needs to be more of an emphasis placed on defense. So hopefully some of these guys coming into the NBA realize that and try that.
Yeah, and like it's ultimately just a problem
Oh
of pace because like if the ball is physically moving faster around on the court, like just because of more passes, it's much harder to, it's harder to defend the ball because like it's harder to be in the right place or whatever.
yeah,
So
I
yeah,
would probably prefer a little bit of a slowdown of the game, but not too extreme. Like
no, not
like let's say like I'm not sure what the average pace of play in the NBA right now is, but maybe if you brought it down to like a couple less possessions per game and stuff, I think that could be pretty cool. Because maybe back to like how like I think it would be cooler if like how like in the early like in a couple like maybe like let's say 10 years ago, 10, 11, 12 years ago when it was like you'd have like Steve Nash and the Suns would be a team that's like run and gun and like they're 7 seconds or less, but then you have multiple other teams who are the complete opposite of them. Like now it's like almost every team is trying to do run and gun and
yeah,
like 3 pointers and layups. I think every team should be able to win in their own way. Like you should have a couple like it rather than just having the Jazz, Memphis, and San Antonio be the grinded out teams. Like you should have multiple teams like that. You should have multiple teams that like to play 7 seconds or less. Just change it up and like have some teams who feed off of ball movement, some teams that feed off of 3 point shooting, some teams that feed off of defense. Like I feel like it would just give more variety, and then like when you're flipping through NBA games to watch, like you can kind of pick what kind of game you want to watch. Like if you want to watch a slow, grinded out defensive game, then you can pick that, or if you want to watch a high 3 point shooting game, you can do that. Yeah, I feel like it would just give more variety and more things to watch.
oh definitely, and like it comes back to what we were saying earlier about the replayability of stuff. Like it's a grind to watch an entire NBA season, or heck, even to watch the entire NBA playoffs, and it's really appreciated when like you get one game and then you turn on the next one and it's a completely different game. Like it's not fun to just
Yeah,
watch the same thing over and over.
exactly. That's why I think, and also like just in general with like it makes it like for like a Golden State Houston series, like watching that series is going to be so repetitive. Like it's going to be the same game every
Yeah,
game. It's going to be a matter of who ends up making more shots. Like it's not really going to be something different. Like the one series from a few years ago, it was I think the Warriors and the Grizzlies. I think I'm not sure if this was in 2015 or in 2014, but no, I don't know. I'm not sure what year it was, but basically, no, it was in 2015. I
yeah.
think
What coach was it?
it was Steve Kerr's first year.
No, no,
Um,
no, for the Grizzlies because it would have either been Yorger or
no, it's
Fizdale.
Dave Yeager.
Oh, okay, then yeah,
Yeah, they like that series was fun to watch because you have two teams that are just completely different. Like you have a 3 point shooting like team, and oh my god, and then sorry, Derrick Rose again,
yeah. No,
but
don't worry about it. This has been an awesome game.
yeah, but yeah, like you had Golden State playing one way, and then you had Memphis playing completely differently. So that was really interesting to watch because you got to see an actual clash of styles and stuff. And even in the 2016 NBA Finals, like you had Cleveland really slowed down the pace of that series, and then especially in Game 7, the final score was only 89-93, whereas Golden State obviously was playing in like the 120s. So, I always prefer to watch different styles of play because having every team like I can name so many teams off the top of my head right now that's like they just play fast pace and like go flashy and like shoot a bunch of threes. Like you got Golden State, you got Houston, you got the Lakers are like that, the Cavs are like that, the Raptors are moving towards being like that. The Suns try to be like that. Obviously, they're not any good at it.
Yeah, almost every
But
tanking team at this point.
yeah, it's like the only teams that I feel like it'd be easier to say the teams that don't do that. It's
Yes,
like San Antonio, New Orleans.
the Jazz.
Derrick Rose just played lockdown defense on James
Yeah, I
Harden.
know. I cannot believe how well he's playing defense still.
That was ridiculous. He actually went tat for tat with James Harden. But anyways, yeah, like you got New Orleans doesn't do that because they're big men. You got San Antonio, the Jazz, the Grizzlies. I'm not really sure what the Grizzlies are doing anymore
Yeah, no,
because
I think they've dropped it.
Carl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to win this game, but they're certainly putting up a lot of effort.
Yeah, it's a good game. But yeah, I mean, what can you do about the NBA? I guess a lot of teams are probably going to keep doing this until it stops working. So
Yeah, and I mean they should. It would be terrible if the NBA tried to say, like you can't keep and do what you want with the pace of play. But oh wow, yeah. So I didn't mention this, but I'm like 30 seconds behind. That was a terrible shot by Carl Anthony Towns.
yeah,
That was bad. But yeah, we just need more variety in terms of the games, and I'd be fascinated to see how much people's liking of playoff basketball has to do with the stakes of the game, obviously, or just the slower pace of play,
hmm
because there really is no way to tell at this point.
yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Uh, What else is going on in the NBA? How are the scores for tonight? Let's see. Hmm. Anything interesting going on in terms of the games? I'm assuming the Celtics are winning.
Oh, they lost.
Oh, they lost. Oh, yeah. That is interesting. Actually, yeah, you were watching some of that game. Can you give us a recap on what you saw?
Uh, Anthony Davis dominating them. That was basically about all I saw from it. I don't think Kyrie was playing, but I think it. I mean, all these losses from the Celtics are kind of showing me that they're really not prepared. They're really not ready. Like, they're just not. I mean, they're a great team and all that. Like in terms for what they are, they're a really good team, but they're really not going to do that much when it comes time for the playoffs.
Yeah, it seems like more and more this season people are starting to get off the bandwagon, and that's what it was. It was totally a bandwagon where everyone's like, "Ooh, Kyrie's creating some drama here. He's leaving the Cavs," and then they go on the
Yeah,
15-game winning streak, obviously. But
yeah,
yeah, it's ridiculous that they got that up in arms, and it kind of put me against them the entire year.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of just like the Celtics. They just can't generate enough. Like it's like they just don't have enough right now. Like Jason Tatum hit his rookie wall, Jalen Brown hit his sophomore year wall, and Gordon Hayward obviously was out. Kyrie Irving is overrated, and there's not really anyone else on that team. Al Horford has had a disappointing season. Um, Marcus Smart is still Marcus Smart, the worst offensive player in the league, and
Yeah,
so yeah,
I mean
I mean,
he fits a role, but yeah,
yeah. No, I think his career field goal percentage is like 35%.
no,
So
it's one of the worst. But like
yeah, he's. I think for the amount of games he's played, he's the worst.
yeah.
So yeah,
And he has one of the worst layup percentages as well. Like apparently, I read some stat that for a while he was shooting better from not free. That wouldn't make any sense. But he was like shooting better from jump shots than from layups.
yeah,
So
that's ridiculous.
yeah, but yeah, there's not much to be said there. Let's see. Do you think that the NBA should try and buy out the big league, not the big league, the big free, and try and run with it for next year as well?
Yeah, I actually feel like that would be best suited for both leagues because I feel like the Big Three would get so much more attention if it was backed by the NBA. Because, like, I mean, the Big Three concept to me sounded super cool, but like, I mean, like I couldn't watch any games because like where were they? Like I don't even know what they were televised on. So
Yeah,
if they actually got a deal with the NBA and sort of maybe created like an actual system where like like a player who's retiring, right? Like he can just go immediately to the big three instead of having to leave the NBA, get his retirement all done, and then have to sign a new contract with the big three. Like that way, you can just like if you're like an old player, like let's say Dirk Nowitzki, right? And like that you want to play in the big three, maybe you could just add you could add like an extension part of your contract which says after you're done playing in the NBA, you can play in the big three for like a year if you want to. So I feel like it would just help the big three get more attention because I don't think that many people were actually watching it last year.
yeah, and I think the biggest thing is yeah, just making a more professional atmosphere also because I watched like the first free games online or some, not games like first free episodes I guess you would call it. Like they did a weird thing where it was like 4 games per episode, and
Yeah.
it was tough to watch because like they were constantly changing the format because like it was in its inception you would expect something like that. But
Yeah.
what really turned me off to them was in the fourth episode what they did, and I didn't even bother to watch it because I got sick of it. Was there was the whole fiasco with Allen Iverson because they did like Allen Iverson throughout the thing was like their spokesperson and like he was their big guy that like they were really trying to promote and be like, look, we have Allen Iverson and we're going to be doing an event in Philadelphia in week 4 and it's going to be great. And
Yeah.
basically, what happened was Allen Iverson didn't play at all.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I remember that. There was like a controversy. There was a problem. Like
and they
he
didn't tell
just
people
not
he
showed
was.
up.
Yeah, and
He
like
like
they
didn't
didn't tell
show up or
people
something.
that. Like
Yeah.
they tried to keep it a secret so people would still come to the thing, and like
Yeah.
yeah, that's bad. And like also, I was reading like afterwards at the press conferences, apparently they were like trying to reach Ice-T, and
Ooh.
like he was like running out of the thing.
Yeah. I mean, also, I feel like they just need to be more like there needs to be more rules about it. Like you can't have Tracy McGrady, who's like 38 and could probably still be a rotation player in the NBA, playing against like 50-year-old Charles Oakley,
Yeah,
like or however old Charles Oakley is.
yeah,
Like
and like all
there needs to be more strict limitations. Like it should probably be something where it's like you have to be at least like 10 years retired from the NBA. Like you can't be like ancient. Like you can't be like because I'm pretty sure Charles Oakley played last season.
yeah, he
Like,
was yes he did he
yeah,
last
like
played
Charles Oakley is 54. Like it's Charles Oakley hasn't played in the NBA since 2004. And even then, he really didn't even actually play. He only played 7 games off the bench. So like basically, his last real NBA season was in 2001, 2002. And so to have him still be playing, to have him in the big three, it's kind of unfair when you have a player like Tracy McGrady who's like 2 years, or not 2 years, but like 3, 4 years removed from his retirement.
Yeah, definitely. And like you in the games that I saw, like it was always Kwame Brown dominating all these other players just because he's in his mid 30s still. So he's able to do stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like Kwame Brown is nothing in the NBA, but if you put him against a bunch of old retired players, like he's 36, obviously he's going to play well. He just finished his NBA career in 2013.
Yeah. And like what's that?
What's what?
Oh, sorry. I was hearing like a weird tapping noise. I wasn't sure if it was like a woodpecker or something.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like another thing was they had like some 29-year-old that was in the league, and like he was having some really good games. And if you're 29 years old and you're in some Legends League, you're not a good player, and like you
Yeah,
shouldn't be.
it should be real legends. Like it or not legends. Like it doesn't have to be legends, but it should just be like
Like,
retired players who are all kind of within the same age group. Because like 29-year-old, like imagine that 29-year-old gets switched on to 54-year-old Charles Oakley. Like that's a difference of almost 30 years. That's
yeah,
a 25-year difference.
yeah, it's
So
ridiculous.
yeah, so yeah, I'm not sure what the limitation would be. Maybe it should be something like if you're older than like 45, you can't play, or maybe that would be a little bit too harsh. But like maybe you could have to go through some sort of like
How about you have to pass like a physical or
yeah,
something?
something like that. Because that way like a player like Vince Carter could play even though he's going to be old. Like I'm sure he's going to be really good in the big three even though he's pretty old.
Yeah,
But
and like someone like Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, who is like 52 years old, he was awesome. And like
yeah,
he's old as hell.
Yeah, and like, but you shouldn't be like you have to. There have to be some sort of criteria where like there has to be something that kind of makes you want to like Derrick Rose. Oh, we missed, but
Oh,
yeah, it's okay. He had a pretty good game, but yeah, like Derrick Rose, he could be a great big three player.
yeah, yeah. If he has any knee cartilage left by the end.
Yeah,
Do you think they should bring free on free basketball to the Olympics? I know I saw that.
I think it'd be cool. But I think it'd be a little bit interesting to see who they would send because, but I feel like you would definitely have to get like the coach of the USA basketball to choose who the three would be because otherwise everyone would be like, oh no, I want to go, no, I want to go, no, I want to go.
Yeah.
So
Is Greg Popovich coaching for the 2024 Olympics? I know he's doing 2020.
I think he's the coach for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Like until he chooses someone, until he chooses to step down.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see who he would choose as his replacement once he's done. Probably Brad Stevens, but you know.
Probably Brad Stevens. He's probably the next coach in the NBA who's going to be really good. Like he's probably going to be a really good perennial. Like he's probably going to be with the Celtics for the next like however long.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's probably going to be one of the more stable coaches in the NBA for the next couple of years.
Oh,
I mean, he might even choose Steve Kerr, honestly, but that'd be kind of dumb.
yeah, he shouldn't. I mean, Steve Kerr's not the greatest coach ever or anything.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking on Greg Popovich and coaching, I heard that once he retires, he wants Manu Ginobili to take over as head coach.
I heard that too. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be great. That'll actually be really good.
Yeah, I don't know how good of a mentor Manu is. Like you don't if you turn on like a Spurs game or something, you don't see Manu like going around and like trying to help out the players or anything. But I'm sure he does a ton of stuff behind the scenes.
I'm sure he probably does it a lot in the locker room because I feel like on the court, the Spurs are all pretty stoic on the court. They don't really show that much emotion.
Yeah.
Or even, honestly though, I kind of get what you're saying. I feel like Tony Parker might be a little bit better because you see more of like him talking a little bit more like in press conferences and like talking about teammates and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I do wonder how much like they've really repaired the rift between him and like the team because I'm sure you remember like 2007, 2008 or whatever was his whole cheating scandal with his wife. But I'm sure they're over it at this point. It's been like 10
Oh yeah,
years.
I don't think Tony. I don't think it's a big deal because I mean he obviously ended up doing all the stuff that he did. Because
I mean, there's the
he was
woodpecker again. Up, it's gone.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, Tony Parker would be interesting, and yeah, I'm sure they're over it. But yeah,
You know what's interesting about Tony Parker that I just did not find out until just now? Tony Parker is a point guard, but his career field goal percentage is 49.
oh,
That's amazing for a point guard.
yeah, that's really good. How's his true shooting percentage?
I'm not sure. I'm just looking at. I'm only looking at basic stats, but Tony Parker had a season where he shot 55% from the field,
Wow, that's
and
crazy.
he averaged 19 points per game. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really think of him as like a shoot first point guard. That's
Five. Yeah, he has 5 seasons where he shot above 50% from the field.
wow.
That's amazing. And he's never shot low. He shot so his rookie year was 42%, but since then the lowest he's ever shot in his career is 45.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at his true shooting percentage right now. He's .548 for his entire career, so that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And like just as recently as 2012, he was 588, so that's really good.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, that's a fun fact of the day, I guess.
Yeah, here, let me just compare that to Rudy Gobert last season, because Rudy Gobert is the pinnacle of everything. Okay,
Yeah.
so not comparable, but it's still good for Tony Parker. Gobert having a 6.81, but
Oh well, yeah, he's a center.
let's ignore
Maybe
that fact.
check Steph Curry's. No, Steph Curry is actually probably insane.
Yeah, let's see. And I think it's also propped up by the fact that he's an amazing free shooter.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Steph Curry's. I'm gonna guess it's in the 600s. Whoa, jeez. It's 6.45. It's 6.75. So that's even more.
Oh
than,
wow.
That's even more than Gobert.
Well, check LeBron's while
Yeah.
you're doing this.
Yeah, sure, LeBron. Easy enough. Just on Basketball Reference, going down to each person's advanced metrics. Let's see. LeBron. Here, I'll just do best seasons. Uh, there we go. Okay. Best season 2013, 2014 is 649, and last season he was a 619. So
Oh,
that's really good.
yeah, especially because he gets fouled a lot.
Oh yeah, and like that's something that he does not get enough credit for, like how well he shoots, despite the fact that he's always getting dragged on, and he's basically got the Shaq syndrome.
Yeah, he does have Shaq syndrome. He has a huge case of Shaq syndrome. But all of his haters like to deem it that he just complains.
Yeah.
But
So
I mean, it's ridiculous how James Harden will get grazed by one finger and go to the line, and LeBron will basically have to fall to the ground.
yeah, and that was definitely something we saw in this game. Like there were a couple times where
Yeah,
like somebody just touched his offhand on his shooting, and like he would get a foul.
yeah. Honestly, I just wish LeBron was a little bit better of a free throw shooter. I think that would really round out his game.
Yeah. So like something I've never asked you is like who's your favorite player historically? Like not the one you think is the best, but like who's your favorite to either watch or like just to follow?
Oh,
And
Dirk Nowitzki, my favorite player.
okay.
Dirk Nowitzki.
Well,
I love
I was
him.
gonna say one not in the NBA right now, but
Oh well, I mean, okay, he's basically not really in it.
yeah, I know. Like he straddles the line too much. Darn
He's on
you.
his last leg. He's on his last leg. But
Yeah.
he the reason he's my favorite player is because basically when I look back on NBA like history, to me he's the only player that stands out as being like he truly and genuinely like he was actually the only star on the team that won a championship. And to
Yeah.
me that's ridiculous. Like to me the 2000 and like I know he had Jason Terry and Jason Kidd and Tyson Chandler. I know they all played well, but at the end of the day, that team did nothing without Dirk Nowitzki. Like,
Yeah.
if Dirk Nowitzki didn't average 26 points and 10 rebounds in the 2011 finals, there's no way they were champions. If he didn't play, like he was extremely clutch in that 2011 final series. I could ramble on about Dirk, but he basically what I think that he there are two things that I think he doesn't get credit for. So the first thing is I feel like Dirk Nowitzki did a huge job in sort of introducing the idea of having a stretch big man, and he sort of introduced I think the idea of or actually let me make this three things. So he introduced like the concept of like a stretch four. Like he was the first I think in the NBA to really like he played more like he played on the block to shoot post fades, and then when he wasn't doing that, he was playing behind the 3 point line, and like he wasn't one of those players who was constantly banging down low as a power forward, even though he was 7 feet tall. And I guess he was sort of the first big man who played with more finesse than with power.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And just the way that he shot. Yeah, he like everyone else prior to him, like, and even the players who all played in his time, all kind of played like we were talking about earlier, like just shoving your shoulder into someone's chest and getting to the basket. But Dirk was always, obviously he perfected the one-legged fadeaway that everyone tries to copy now, and he was expanding his range to where obviously he like I attribute the concept of stretching the floor, like where you have a big man shooting. Like I feel like every team that has a big man that shoots is sort of because Dirk kind of made that like a thing, and he showed how successful that could be when the Mavericks were winning a lot of games in the 2000s. The second thing that I think he doesn't get enough credit for is how good of a job he did being an ambassador for the game and welcoming it to like European players. Because now, I think he was probably, for the 2000s era, he was the best European player.
Oh,
I think
hands down.
definitely he's probably I think depending on how you think of Hakeem Olajuwon, because Hakeem Olajuwon played college in the United States and all that stuff. I think Dirk Nowitzki is the best international player ever. He really expanded the game beyond borders, and like now you see this thing where so many teams end up drafting a tall white big man just because they feel like he might be the next Dirk Nowitzki. Kristaps Porzingis that ended up working out, but then you have Dragan Bender, Darko Milicic, Andrea Bargnani, and that list goes on.
Yeah.
Jakob Pertl for the Raptors. And then the last thing, in the 2011 playoffs, no one really talks about how like the level of competition that he went through to get to that championship was absolutely phenomenal. In the first round, he played against the Portland Trailblazers when they had LaMarcus Aldridge, and they were playing really well. He beat them in 6 games. Then after that series, he played the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers, who had just went back to back with Kobe Bryant and Pau Gasol. He swept them. They won the series 4-0. And then in the conference finals, he beat a young up and coming team of Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook in the conference finals that ended up going to the finals the year after. So just in the Western Conference, he went through an extremely competitive gauntlet, and then obviously in the finals, he ended up beating LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. So essentially, in one playoff run, he beat LaMarcus Aldridge, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, Kobe Bryant, Pau Gasol, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. So when you read that out, that's extremely impressive. And obviously, he had help, and I know a lot of it has to do with LeBron not showing up in that final series, but nonetheless, I just think that he's one of the more unsung best. Like, I think he's just one of the most underappreciated legends in the NBA. So for those reasons, he's my favorite player, and he's also extremely loyal. He's played 20 years for the Mavericks, and like, who wants to play 20 years for the Mavericks? So,
Well, I think playing for Mark Cuban has been fantastic, but yeah, just everything else in Dallas, you're not getting much.
yeah, exactly. I mean, especially because like they've probably always been like, aside from those couple years, like they've never been the best team in Texas. Like San Antonio has always been better than them.
Yeah.
So
No, those are all amazing points, and yeah, he brought the stretch forward to the NBA, and just the point that I've never thought of before is that like yeah, he is like the only big man ever to be more of a finesse player than a power player, and like that's while going to the basket. Obviously, you have someone like Ryan Anderson who is
mhm.
that way, but he doesn't go to the basket. But yeah, that's an awesome point. And something that you mentioned about it depending on if him being the best international player of all time, if Hakeem Olajuwon counted as being from the U.S., I would put Dirk above Hakeem Olajuwon at this point. Like, would you not?
I mean, I feel like the talent disparity is definitely in Hakeem's favor just because of
Yeah,
how good he was on defense. But just in terms of overall greatness, I feel like Dirk is obviously he's sixth all time in scoring. He's the franchise leader of basically everything for his team. I feel like you could make an argument, but I feel like just in most people's eyes, Hakeem Olajuwon is probably put much ahead of Dirk only because of the individual talent, and he does have one more championship. So, I mean,
yeah, and so could Dirk. I mean, that
yeah,
2006 finals.
oh yeah, also yeah, that finals. That's another reason why I love Dirk so much. Like he was completely robbed of an NBA championship in that series just because of the officiating. I'm not sure if you read up on that scandal,
Yes.
but basically the Tim Donaghy thing was basically plaguing the league around that time, and that's the reason that the Dallas Mavericks didn't win that series.
Wait. Hang on a second. I didn't know it had to do with the Tim Donaghy thing. I knew about the problem with the officiating, but I didn't know it had anything to do with Tim Donaghy.
So Tim Donaghy basically, well, like I'm not sure if he wasn't refereeing the series, but he basically came out after the series happened and he said he made all these comments about how like there's no way that the NBA would ever let there's no way that the referees would ever let Mark Cuban win a series because the referees association does not like Mark Cuban at all. They hate him. There's absolutely no way that Dallas will end up winning this series because Miami's favored, and like basically he made all these points that kind of show the corruption of the refs. So I don't think he actually officiated in that series, but
But no, he's been shown to be pretty truthful, despite the fact that he did some bad things.
no, like I mean, he's a liar, but he's not a liar. He's a scumbag, but
But
he's
he's
not a liar.
honest, yeah.
Yeah, he tells the truth. He said that basically the refs never liked Cuban, so they kind of. And I mean, like when you go through and you watch the missed calls in that series, like
Yeah, they're
that's
bad.
completely accurate. They were really bad. Like there was a play for like a game winning free throw that Dwayne Wade got, where literally nobody even touched him. Like he was actually untouched, and they just called a foul. And then the free throw disparity in the series and all that. So basically, because Dirk he ended up on the wrong side of that adversity for no reason, and then I just feel like as a player, he's been through a lot. Just because he went to the finals in 2006, and then the next year he came back, he won the MVP award, and then they won 67 games, but then they ended up losing in the first round to the We Believe Warriors.
Yeah.
So like that just because his team kind of fell apart around him. So I just feel like he's kind of been through more than most NBA players have, just in terms of almost getting there and just like this is finally their year and just having their dreams crushed. And I'm just super happy that he actually ended up winning a championship because his career would not be
Oh,
complete,
yeah.
obviously, if he didn't beat Dallas. And it'd be one of the more sad situations in the league if a player like him didn't win a championship because of his devotion to the franchise.
Oh, 100%. There'd be so much more outcry about the 2006 finals if he didn't have that championship.
Yeah, exactly. But because basically he got the retribution on LeBron, it ended up, kind of canceling out. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's an interesting case in NBA history. If LeBron James had never choked away that final series, who knows? Maybe Dirk would have left to try and get a championship somewhere while he was
Uh,
still in his 30s.
that doesn't seem like Dirk.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
But
he
yeah,
he
it would have been
probably
so
should have.
sad.
Yeah, I'm sure he never actually would have wanted to leave Dallas, but at some point, I feel like, I mean, if I was him, I definitely would have because I feel like getting a championship is one of the best things that you can. And there's no way that Dirk is recognized nearly as well as he is if he doesn't win that championship. Nobody would even really consider him like anything of what he is. Like, I think one of the reasons that he gets such high regard from both players and like other like media outlets and stuff is because he's one of the most well carried NBA stars. Like he really just seems like a nice guy. Like anytime he's interviewed, like he's never rude to reporters. He's just really nice and funny, and he's just relaxed, I guess. And like you've never ever heard a player say something bad about Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah,
So
and like that's saying something, considering how underrated he already is.
yeah, and also I didn't know this about him, but even though he does seem like a really nice guy, he's clearly to me super competitive. I think he's like sixth all time in technical fouls.
Oh wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
which, and I mean, I feel like that's really just because of competition, and also, I mean, he's played extremely long in the NBA. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
um,
certainly, and
Dirk Nowitzki is sixth all time in technical fouls. The only people ahead of Dirk are Dennis Rodman, Gary Payton, Rasheed Wallace, Charles Barkley, and Karl Malone. But he is ahead of he's ahead of Alonzo Mourning, Bill Laimbeer,
oh
Tyson
Lambeer, that's a good
Chandler,
one.
Dwight Howard, Steve Francis, Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony,
Really,
Shaq,
Carmelo? Huh?
Kobe, Kevin Garnett.
What's
So
Carmelo
he's ahead of
doing?
a lot of players. So
That's
he's
interesting that
definitely a
Carmelo's
competitive kid.
that high. Hmm. I didn't realize he had that many technicals.
Yeah, but still, I mean, it's cool. It's just something that people wouldn't expect from him, I guess.
Yeah, and like Dirk has always just been one of those players that I feel the need to prop up myself because like I don't really have favorite players most of the time. It's just players that I feel like are underrated or overrated, and like I don't want to take some moral high ground or something, but I like to think that I'm helping a little bit to improve like their perception and just I'm trying to say okay, this player isn't getting their respect, and like by him being one of my favorites or by convincing someone else for them to be their favorite, I'm doing something to help them get their true average, their actual value, and like that's something that you
Yeah,
really
I
have
mean,
to
and just
do.
all there are just so many things that that people don't like. Like I mean, like he won an MVP award. Like he averaged a 50-40-90. Um, he's the first player during his time who just randomly came from a different country and just ended up doing extremely well. I mean, he improved so much from his rookie year to his second year. He went from averaging 8 points on 40% shooting and 20% shooting from the field to 18 points on 46% shooting and 38% shooting from three. Like he's like class personified. Like he's just one of the. I mean, he's really just one of the more unsung legends ever. And the fact that he's proven himself to be such a good shooter that he shot 42% from three and 91% from the free throw line, and he's 7 feet tall. Really, just shows like he really paved the way for all these other players to start jacking threes.
Yeah, and that was the MVP season.
The MVP season he shot. Let's see. MVP season he shot 50%, 41%, 90%, and then in 2010 he shot 42% from three, 91% from the free throw line.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's absolutely unbelievable that was done by a 7 foot player. Like even
Yeah,
today, that's still unbelievable, and that's
I mean,
saying
and like
something.
people say that he's like on his last leg, but like last season he averaged 14 points per game, and for a 38-year-old player in his 19th season, like that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
So
like yeah. Yeah, I mean, Derek's always got a place in my heart and yours as well.
yeah, and also just I mean the other things like the franchise, like some things just like he kind of got screwed out of the whole Steve Nash situation because Steve Nash ended up going to Phoenix because Mark Cuban and all those guys didn't want to pay him. So
Yeah, And like that's really the only example I can think of Mark Cuban being a bad owner. Aside from that, he's been fantastic.
Yeah.
So one more thing that I want to get into before we get ready to close out is has to do with NBA expansion franchises. So we've been over the whole thing with why we don't think the NBA should expand, or why you don't think it should expand. I think it should expand, but it should switch to like a European relegation system where it expands to 40 teams and then splits in half. But if the NBA was going to expand, where would you want it? Where would you want to see it go alongside Seattle? Because obviously we got to get to Seattle first.
Well, if I were to expand the league, I would probably only have max. I would probably expand it, like maybe add four more teams, add two more teams to each conference. That so that way you'd have 17 teams in each conference. I'd probably add one. Let's see. I mean,
Yeah, no, like I'll throw you a bone on Seattle. Like that's the
yeah.
one
So
everyone goes for.
maybe Seattle, you could add one. You could add a second team to Canada, just so Toronto's not all alone up there.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to expand really into North America, you could even put one maybe at the tip of Mexico.
Oh, that'd be
Put
interesting.
that team in the Western Conference, and then you could put the Canadian team to in the Eastern Conference. And then honestly, I feel like maybe just let me look at a map of the USA right now and just kind of pick a place.
Yeah,
Let's see.
because like I'm trying to think of like where you would put the Canadian team. Like some people talk about like a Montreal team or maybe like a Quebec team.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah,
there was the Vancouver Grizzlies for a
yeah.
while.
I feel like maybe like if maybe you could just add a team to like one of the Midwestern play or not a I wouldn't do Midwest. Maybe a team like South Carolina. Like that could work. Because they don't have a team. Alabama doesn't have a team. They'd obviously get some fans. They have a lot of people that enjoy sports in general.
Yeah, and like the biggest problem with the American South is just it's too college heavy. Like that's a lot of the arguments for why Virginia doesn't have any pro sports teams.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I feel like just any team along the East Coast, really. Like even you could even put one in like Iowa. No, I wouldn't put one in Iowa.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't put basically the only states that I wouldn't put one in. Like I wouldn't put one in like you could put one in Nevada, like Vegas.
Yeah,
like, that could be fine. Like you could put one in Vegas, but the problem with that would be then you'd have to put the team in Mexico to like the east of Mexico so that they could be in the Eastern Conference. But
yeah, and even still, it wouldn't really be in the East because Mexico doesn't go over far enough. But
yeah, but you'd have to do something. But yeah, I mean, I would probably put one in Vegas, one in Seattle, one somewhere in Canada, and maybe one in Mexico. Just because I know Adam Silver has talked about expanding the NBA to probably being more than one country.
Yeah, and I agree. They do
or
need
more
to.
than two, but Canada only has one team. So
Yeah, like for me, I would probably only expand to two teams. But yeah, if I had to do year four, absolutely Seattle. Like that's just a no-brainer. And then I agree you do need to expand internationally, but one of the biggest problems of Mexico is like it adds an additional exchange rate, and it's also not in the best financial situation right now, so it's difficult to find a
and
convincing.
also probably the only place that you could put one in Mexico would be Mexico City, and I'm not sure how far away that would be. And that commute would just be annoying. But I don't know. I think Vegas
actually, yeah,
cool.
yeah. Let's go Mexico City. That's a fine place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So where else? You got to do another in Canada, but I'll try and figure out this American city. Let's see. You can't do anything in the northwest all the way out to basically North Dakota. That place is pretty much uninhabited.
Yeah.
Can't really do the American southeast. Can't really do the northeast because that's all taken up. What about Kansas City?
Oh, that wouldn't be bad. Because you're talking about Kansas City and Missouri?
Yeah.
Yeah. That would, I think that could work because then you kind of add, like, you kind of give like a team kind of for those teams, like people in Arkansas and Kansas and Iowa and Nebraska, like all the that Missouri is kind of in the middle of it, but they're still relatively close to like Illinois and Oklahoma, so like they could have like 4 season games against the Bulls and the Thunder, or whatever. So
yeah, okay, so we do that, and then for the Canadian team, how about we put one in Ottawa?
Oh yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
Yeah, And then to fix the imbalances between the conferences, you swap New Orleans with trying to find a team to move over to the. Oh, you don't need
Oh,
to. Yeah, just New
yeah, yeah.
Orleans and put them in the East because I think that they're an Eastern Conference team already.
New Orleans is West, but they
No,
should be.
I mean they should be. Yeah, is what I'm saying.
They should be in these. Yeah, because then you could have then you could have what you're saying. So you're saying you would put the Missouri team in the West with Seattle?
Yeah, because like Kansas City, Missouri is essentially in line with those with the Dallas Mavericks, so it would be weird
Oh,
if.
okay. Yeah, 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 okay, yeah. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, because the East kind of line is kind of just Illinois is like the last state that kind of. But it's weird to me how Illinois, looking at this map, like Illinois is in the East, but Tennessee is in the West.
Yeah,
The
like
the Grizzlies.
Tennessee's the only one I make a provision for because for some reason it's just a Western state. I don't like that it is, but I
Yeah,
haven't found a way to make the math work to
yeah,
put them in the East.
yeah. One minute, Ryan. My mom's calling me.
Yeah, sure. So really, I only have one question left for him after this. It's just going to be if he thinks that an NBA franchise in Europe would work. I was reading a couple days ago about not a couple days ago. What am I talking about? This was like months and months ago about a American rugby league that was trying out a system where one of the divisions in European rugby, it was like English rugby, really. In that England does a relegation system for all of its sports. They had like for a third division team, a team in Canada. So I thought that was fascinating because you're dealing with a 5 hour commute basically every day. Obviously, they put it on the Canadian West Coast because they're not that evil to their players. But yeah, like if a 5 hour commute every day is a realistic expectation, because if you look at it in the NBA, the longest you can expect is like a 3 hour commute, and that's like coast to coast and just trying to see okay could you just have the team go on like scheduled so that it's always on like a really long home a long home stand or like a really long away stand like is that completely unrealistic because if you look at it you might be able to make enough gains from the fact that you're delving into an international market in Europe because if you think about it like I don't know how big EuroLeague is there. That's just the European Basketball Association. But if we just added an NBA team, I think that could be huge, especially if you put it in like London or Paris or because you would have to put it on like pretty much as far west as you can get, or heck, maybe even Madrid. Like how long is Let me look at how big the difference is in time zones. Actually, I'll just look at the map of Europe because I want to see if it would have to be London. So I'm not convinced London would be the best option. Uh, no, essentially the UK is in line with London, and where's Paris in France? I don't actually know that. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to put it in like Germany or something because that's just too far east, too far, yeah, too far east at that point from the U.S. It is loading. It's still loading. I think Paris is in the east of France, but I'm not quite sure. Uh, it's loading again. No, it's a little west of London, east of London, but it's not crazy. Yeah, so you would have to put it in either London or Madrid. Right now, I'm kind of leaning toward Madrid, to be honest with you, but it would just be a question of if you want to delve into a Spanish-speaking market, because yeah, if you're, it's questionable if the NBA would want that right now, because it's completely English at the moment, and there's not that well. That's the problem with expanding into Europe, actually, because I've always found this weird about Europe that there's like 45 different languages or whatever, like essentially a different language for every country. So that's the weird thing. Like if you're expanding into it, you're almost isolated to that one country's nationality. There's not much you can do to, like, say, if you expanded into Madrid or something, then are you going to get many German fans out of that? I don't know. And it's also questionable if EuroLeague would even be willing to have that happen for the NBA. Now, something I'd be fascinated to see is if like they instead of doing an expansion draft, they like tried to promote a team out of the it just like they just said, hey, let's do a year long tournament or like a 5 year tournament or whatever, and just the top performing team is going to move up into the NBA, and I think that'd be really interesting to see. But yeah, I think it would have to be Madrid. I'm thinking that obviously Portugal is even farther west, so that might be a better option. But I mean, Lisbon isn't a massive market, so that wouldn't necessarily be the best option. Hmm. Uh, yeah. Okay. So I think we should probably get ready to wrap up. I think we have. I told you guys a bunch of really good questions that we have for next time.
Yep.
We'll probably get on to how to fix the expansion draft, and would a expansion team work in Europe. So that'll be fun. We might take the next week off. I'm trying to figure out if we actually have enough material to go in our week because I wasn't sure around like the 2.5
Yeah.
hour mark if we were going to make it. But yeah, that'll be interesting. And if you guys enjoyed the
Yeah, we
listening,
did a good though.
yeah, and if you guys listened to and enjoyed listening to this podcast as much as Aradh and I like talking in it, then please give us a 5-star review on iTunes. That's all we need, and a written review if you really want to. But I don't think that makes as much of a difference. We just need that 5 stars. And yeah, check out our YouTube channel, Topical, Rationalizing the Monkey Brain into Google. It'll pull it up. It's unedited. It's interesting. It's got a subscribe button you can hit if you want to. You can even ring that bell. Give us a comment. I won't look at them, but if you want to be cathartic, you can do that. And yeah, thanks for listening, and bye bye.